Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is story about what if Naruto's ceiling changed and a new bloodline has awakened part 1. Before I start, please do support for more amazing content and comments for part 2. Do consider to subscribe my channel and share my video to your friends and check out the description as well. Let's start the video. 4 years ago in the Land of Fire, a great peril befell a large ninja village, for reasons unknown. The great nine-tailed demon fox, Kyubi no Yuko, attacked the village hidden in the leaves, Konoha. It is said that with each swing of its mighty tails it could smash mountains, cause tsunamis, unleash destruction. It seemed that all was lost for the people of Konoha. Ninjas died by the hundreds, with no chance of slaying the vile beast. Even the third Hokage could not stand against the beast long, eventually being forced to retreat, if only to ensure that if the village survived, there would be a leader remaining. For you see, the third knew what was coming, and that his successor would not be in this world by the time the ordeal was finished. Hold on for just a little longer, the blonde ninja thought to himself, as he raced through finishing the last of the forbidden seal. The Shirsho Fujin, a seal created for the sole purpose of sealing away demons, at the cost of one's own life. Running out of his house, the blonde raced for the Kyubi's location at a speed nearing the speed of light. With a throw and a yellow flash, there standing before him was the great nine-tailed demon fox, with a bite of his thumb, 5 short hand seals, and a cry of Kuchios no Jutsu. The great toad Gamabunta was summoned, standing 60 feet tall, about the same height as the Kyubi. The toad was orangish-brown, wearing a blue vest with the kanji 4 toad on the back, and wielding his tanta, which was about half the size of himself. The toad boss was truly a sight to behold. However, it was not him the people were looking at, it was the man atop his head, the blonde ninja, the Yondaime Hokage and quite possibly the world's greatest ninja, standing 6 feet 2 inches tall, with a jounin flak jacket, blue ninja pants and shirt, and his trademark white cape with the kanji Konoha's yellow flash on the back, stood proudly, radiating a power which could seem to overwhelm all who opposed him. The Yondaime has arrived! Cried many ninjas from the ranks. The Kyubi too took notice of the great being before him. Not as great as himself, of course, but indeed powerful. With a lightning-fast slash of a claw, the great toad Gamabunta was wounded, a scar reaching from his left eyebrow to next to his nose, damaging the left eye. Jumping back, Gamabunta growled, "If you can do something, kid, do it quick. I can't handle too much damage." "I will, just keep us close. If we get too far away, this won't work," the Yondaime yelled to his toad comrade. "I'll do what I can," the toad replied, and jumped high into the air, announcing Suetun, Teppadama, water release, water bullet. 3 large orbs of water fired straight towards the Kyubi, only to be deflected by its tails with seemingly little effort. While this happened, the Yondaime was quickly going through all 125 of the required seals. When Gamabunta landed, he was hit by one of the Kyubi's tails, greatly injuring his organs. Yondaime as well was struck by some of the Kyubi's energy, but at the same time he shouted out his technique, in a voice which rang louder than any of Kyubi's roars. "Fuin, Shirsho Fujin no Jutsu. Seal, 4-image seal technique." In an instant, the Kyubi, Yondaime, and consequently Gamabunta disappeared. Only Sarutobi, the third Hokage, saw where the Kyubi went. Its energy, along with that of an unknown source, that felt almost like the Yondaime's, was felt entering the stomach of the newborn baby. The Yondaime's son, Namake's Naruto, was now sealed with the greatest of the bijou within him. The cry which echoed within the barely lit room where Sarutobi and Naruto resided was not heard by many, but for Sarutobi, it would be the most painful experience for him, as he couldn't do anything to stop it. All the remaining ninjas on the battlefield cheered uproariously as they believed the Kyubi had died. However, the cheering didn't last long, as they quickly noticed the absence of the Yondaime's body, as well as the number of corpses littered around them. The cries of pain were not ignored for more than a second, and quickly the remaining ninjas gathered the wounded and the dead, treating or burying them depending on the circumstances. 1 day later, the third Hokage was seen standing atop the Hokage Tower, addressing the people who stood below in the clearing. He was roughly 5 feet 6 inches tall, with short brown yet graying hair with a few bald spots, and in his 50s he was still a force to be reckoned with. Nicknamed the Professor, he knew over 1,000 jutsus, and could take down a small army of jounin by himself. Addressing the crowd, he spoke out to the crowd. "We have suffered greatly, we have lost many good men, women, children, we have suffered losses of our treasures, our pride, our power, but we are not yet lost. The brave Yondaime Hokage gave his life for this village, sacrificing himself in order to defeat the mighty Kyubi. He would wish us to rebuild, and we will honor him. We will rebuild ourselves into the great village we once were. All is not lost, and by my life I swear I will protect you all, and that Konoha will again rise into a great village." Shouts of encouragement, whistling, clapping, and cheering was heard from the crowd. None of them knew the Kyubi was merely sealed away, but let them believe what they need to. It is too early to drop such a bomb upon the people again, and knowing their hatred of the Kyubi, they would surely try to kill the child. 2 weeks later, the reconstruction of the village was coming along well. The Fire Daimyo decided to help fund the village's renewal, and with additional missions for surviving teams, the economy was improving. With the sped-up economy, the village would soon be completely rebuilt. However, this was not the matter the council met to discuss that day. Kill the demon child. It is too dangerous to be left alive, shouted several members of the council. It is a danger to us all, the seal could break, and then what would happen? We'd have a second coming of the Kyuubi, shouted other members. Sarutobi cut in, quieting the room with a gesture. When the room was fully silent, he spoke, we cannot kill the child. The yandame wished for him to be seen as a hero, and surely if you believed in our yandame you would believe in his skills. At this, a white-eyed man with long black hair and white robes addressed the room. The Hokage is correct, and who knows what would happen if we were to kill the child. Perhaps killing the child will break the seal, and that as well would cause a second coming of the Kyuubi. Danzo, a man greatly distrusted by the Hokage, began to speak. Wearing bandages around most of his face, and a normal formal robe, he addressed the rest of the council. This is true. We do not know about the inner workings of the seal, however if it was truly weak, would it not have broken by now? No, I say we take this child and make him into a weapon for Konoha. If he becomes a ninja, he may be able to use the Kyuubi's power against our enemies. Plus then he could be restrained, we could control the power of the Kyuubi. While stating this, Danzo was laughing maniacally in his head, but he succeeded in not showing what he felt inside. Several council members agreed to this plan of action, but Sarutobi would hear nothing of the sort. This child is the son of the yandame. We cannot use him as a weapon. Hayashi Hyuga, the man in the white robes, spoke up again. Though I don't particularly care for the child, perhaps he should be placed with a family with one of the council members. He will soon start to resemble the yandame, and that will only cause questions to arise. Enemies of the yandame will chase after him, and if killing him results in the Kyuubi being released, then we'd all be doomed. This child must be hidden. Sarutobi, I agree, he cannot be put with just any family in Konoha. He must be protected until he can protect himself. In order for this to happen, I believe a clan head should take care of the child. After 15 more minutes of discussion, it was clear that most of the council agreed the child must be placed in a clan head's family in order to prevent a second Kyuubi attack from occurring, but none of the clan heads were willing. Sarutobi, then I shall take him into my household. Perhaps if he lives with us, he can at least learn to protect himself while he is young. Since he truly is the Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi, then he will be able to grow very strong, and perhaps he will become the second yandame, instead of the second Kyuubi. With this statement, the council took a vote, and the acceptance of Naruto into the Sarutobi family became official. Though several of the members still hated the child, believing him to be the demon, the majority saw him as merely the container, and were either indifferent, or had plans for using him. Danzo. A rule was also made on that day, that Naruto's secret would be held by clan leaders and clan leaders only. If the law was broken and anyone told someone in the village, even their own family, they would be charged with treason and executed. The fact that Naruto was the Kyuubi's Jinchuriki was to be kept a SS class secret, and Naruto himself would not be told until he officially became a genin. Naruto would become a ninja, the most powerful of his kind. The young blonde woke up at 6 a.m. with no trouble. A hyperactive 4-year-old with nothing better to do learned that his future was to be a ninja. Flashback no jutsu. Yesterday, Naruto! Sarutobi yelled for the 50th time that day. He was looking around the estate for his adopted son, and even with the help of several clones, the boy was nowhere to be found. Naruto! If you aren't in front of me in the next 5 seconds, you aren't getting ramen for a month. Faster than you could say Hiraishin, Naruto was in front of the original Sarutobi. Having dropped from the ceiling, Sarutobi was once again surprised by the blonde. Unlocking his chakra at age 3, being able to control it at genin level by age 4, and being able to perform the academy's basic 3 jutsus, was beyond what even the yandame accomplished. Yes, Ajisen? Naruto asked in a military-esque voice. Standing at attention with his fingers in a salute, the young boy was dressed in a black tank top, dark green camo cargo shorts, black ninja sandals. Where he got them Sarutobi still couldn't figure out, and styled his hair so it was sticking up and in other directions. Whether the kid used mousse or just had naturally spiky hair, the Hokage couldn't figure out either. Naruto, I need to talk with you about something of great importance. Is this about when I hinged to get into the women's bathhouse? A white-haired man told me if I got their underwear he'd give me candy. No, he was dealt with rather harshly about 30 seconds after you left. The nice man is now in a hospital. However, never do that again. It is not a nice thing to do to people. Biting back a perverted giggle as he wondered whether or not he could do that himself, he continued. No, I want to discuss with you your ninja training. At this, the young blonde jumped up into the air several times, shouting this is even better than ramen. Training! Training! Seeing the boy's enthusiasm, the Hokage continued. Now, for your age you are already as skilled as the average academy student. Your taijutsu needs work, but for ninjutsu and genjutsu you are already at genin level. However, it is not what you have that you should work on, it is what you don't have. For the next 2 years until you enter the academy, you will be studying all there is to know about the mechanics and theories of ninjutsu, genjutsu, and taijutsu styles, in addition to research on the art of fuinjutsu. I promise you that if you abide by my schedule, you will be the best in your class and will probably graduate early. Studying? How is that supposed to help? Can't you just show me some cool jutsus to learn? Whined Naruto. A tick mark appeared on Sarutobi's head. Baka, you must train your mind before you can become powerful. Without knowing this, you will be unable to improvise, you will not be a great ninja, you will be limited. By knowing theories, you can create your own jutsu, you can become great, perhaps even as much as the Yondaime. Yondaime Naruto was quickly submerged in his thoughts. He had only had a brief 4 years of life, but he already desired to be Hokage. He saw what Sarutobi had done for the village, and had read about the accomplishments of the Hokages. Naruto learned all he could about all of them, their abilities, their lives, even some stuff he wasn't supposed to know that he stole from the Hokage's office while his Ajisen hadn't been watching. Naruto also loved the village. People were kind to him, not just because of his father, but because of his seemingly natural charisma. The village, aside from a few clans where the clan heads had gotten bits of the secret out, was kind to him, and for this, Naruto greatly loved the village. Naruto knew he wasn't originally the Hokage's son, it was too obvious that he looked nothing like him. Add in the fact that Sarutobi wouldn't tell him who they were, and it became a mighty suspicious situation. Naruto was all the more grateful that people were so nice to him, even though he was an orphan. He had seen what happened to some orphans, and what happened when the Hyuga branch decided a child was fated one way or the other, and Naruto decided he wanted to change the way the village worked, to help people who were not as fortunate as he. Snapping back to reality, Naruto spoke. I will do whatever it takes. Sarutobi, surprised once again at the boy's resolve, smiled. Excellent. First things first, go clean your room, and go to bed, you're gonna need lots of energy tomorrow. With an enthusiastic yash, Naruto bounded up the stairs. For the next hour, clattering sounds could be heard until finally there was quiet, then soon after loud snoring. And flashback no jutsu. Today was the first day of Naruto's studies. Rushing to the bathroom, he cleaned himself up. After a short bath, he emerged, wrapped in a towel. For his age, he was surprisingly buff. It's not every day you see a 4-year-old with a six-pack. This, of course, is because with all his free time, all Naruto would do was train himself. However, now all that time would be put to better use. Quickly dressing in an orange tank top and some black shorts, he made his way downstairs. Sitting at the table, the young blonde ate some milk and cereal, going through about half a box of the stuff in under 10 minutes, and left out the door to do his normal warm-ups. After 50 push-ups, sit-ups, punches, and kicks, the boy headed back inside with a light sweat. Though he didn't know where his stamina came from, he was happy to have it. Upon returning to the kitchen, he saw his Ajisen waiting for him. Naruto, in order to help you train and study to a greater extent, I am going to teach you one jutsu. It is a Jounin-level Kenjutsu, and I don't expect you to get it for several weeks. It is called Kage Bunshin no Jutsu, Shadow Clone Jutsu. Naruto's eyes lit up. Not only was he learning a new jutsu, he was learning a Jounin-level jutsu. A Kenjutsu. Showing Naruto the one seal, Sarutobi explained how the jutsu worked, including its ability to transfer its experiences and knowledge back to the original, with the only drawback being making too many clones could incapacitate the user, and the massive headache that would be gained from dispelling the clones. Naruto then set out to the backyard to practice. 3 hours later, Ajisen Sensei. Ajisen Sensei. I did it! Shouted 5 Narutos standing in the training yard out back. A non-believing Sarutobi looked out the window, only to see that there before him were 5 Narutos, none deformed, and without being dispelled from chakra depletion. Wow, he whispered. Naruto! Hold them for as long as you can, then come inside and rest. Sarutobi called from the estate. Naruto continued to stand and hold the clones for quite a long time, until his stomach started rumbling, which meant time for lunch. Having held the clones alive so to speak for a whole 5 hours, Naruto was plenty hungry, and headed inside to eat. In those 5 hours, Sarutobi reminisced. Knowing that he had not taught his student one of the keys to his success, the old man looked over the house. It hadn't changed all that much since he had brought Naruto home 4 years ago. The estate was 3 stories tall, painted white. It had several rooms on the first floor, including his den, a library, a living room, a kitchen, and 2 bedrooms, including his master bedroom. On the second floor there was just one long hallway, stretching the length of the house, with 6 large rooms, 3 on either side of the hallway. Naruto's bedroom, and Asuma's, Sarutobi's son, old bedroom was located right next to it. The other rooms were either spare bedrooms or meeting rooms for the rare occasion that a meeting needed to be done in his private residence. The third floor was just one gigantic loft, with a gigantic bed, a hot tub, a porch that overlooked the training ground, a smaller kitchen, and 1 giant bathroom. A family of 6 could comfortably live there, especially because of the various deep couches in the room, some surrounding a fireplace. One wall held even more books than the library, however mostly not having to do with jutsus or any ninja-related business. The training room could be seen from the porch, on the east side of the estate. In the attic of that building was a lockdown seal to prevent anyone but himself or someone related to him from entering. However, Naruto could also get in if he entered with his Ajisen. The backyard was just one giant training field. It was as wide as the estate and training room, and stretched back so far it nearly entered the woods. When Naruto arrived, not much changed, other than the overall messiness that he eventually outgrew, but still, memories of Naruto flooded back, and yesterday's antics just reinforced his belief in the boy. Hearing a stomach growling loudly from behind him, Sarutobi turned to see Naruto holding his stomach. I held the clones for 5 whole hours, can we eat now? I could have held them longer but I'm hungry, Naruto complained. Sarutobi agreed, and the two went out for ramen. With Naruto's monster stomach, he downed 24 bowls of ramen before being satisfied. With a wave to his favorite ramen cook and daughter, Tuchi and Ayam, they were off back to the training ground. Now Naruto, the time you were able to hold those clones means you have at least high Chunin level chakra. But don't celebrate yet, you still have to learn to control it better. For the rest of the day and this week I want to do to trees what you did with the walls, climb up them with chakra. However, don't do this alone, get your clones to do it with you. Judging from your apparent supply, don't make any more than 9 clones at a time. Now get going! You have work to do, yes Aji-sensei. And with a gleeful laugh, the young hyperactive blonde set off to his work. 1 week later, getting up from his bed, promptly at 6 a.m., Naruto showered, pulled on some clothes, and headed down to talk with his Ajizan. Now what am I going to be doing now? Naruto, now is when you begin studying. I know this may seem boring, but with every bit of knowledge you gain, you are one step closer to becoming Hokage. Remember, knowledge is power, and a stupid ninja is a dead ninja. Do not complain, this is for your own good. Leading Naruto into the downstairs den, he told the young, hyperactive blonde. This is your assignment for the next 2 years. Read every single book here, and up in the loft. You will find your chakra reserves and control will increase, and eventually you will be able to make more clones. You should have 5 assigned to each room, for now, in order to get an equal balance for the future. Do not overwhelm yourself with too much of either library. If you work steadily for the next 2 years, you can do this. Gaping at his grandfather and sensei, Naruto slowly closed his mouth, and nodded a resigned, sad nod. He looked down for a moment, then looked up at his grandfather. Ajizan, I'll do it for you. For my future, for my dream. I swear I'll do it, and I never go back on my word. That's my Nindo. Then, giving his grandfather a thumbs up suspiciously similar to Guy's except without the scary hair and shiny glint on his teeth from an invisible light, Naruto created 9 clones, and went to work. The next 2 years would be interesting, very interesting indeed. 2 years later, a 6-year-old Naruto looked around the library. Having finally finished both libraries, after doing nothing but studying in Kage Bunshin no Jutsu, Shadow Clone Technique, he decided to reflect on everything he knew. Using a few hours, he decided to just go over it all in his head, since he really did know a lot, way more than most other people in the village. The only people to really rival his intelligence in general were probably elite Jounins, or the Hokage himself. However, Naruto had time to spare. He promised to Ajizan his 3rd day that he wouldn't complain, and he never did. He held himself to his word, and now he was probably the smartest kid his age on the planet unless someone else somewhere did what he did still. Needless to say, Naruto had become rather confident in his abilities. Over the 2 years, Naruto had analyzed over 50 different styles of taijutsu, their concepts, their strengths and weaknesses, and the situations they are used in. Though he learned none of the styles physically, Naruto's knowledge of taijutsu could rival Guy's, not that he knew who that was anyhow. Most of the concepts included either forced incapacitation through damage to organs from the outside, or through hitting key points on the body which force it to collapse. Upon looking through the endless scrolls and books, Naruto had even found a scroll that appeared to be the predecessor to the Juken that the Hyuga prize over all other styles of combat. This scroll in particular piqued Naruto's interest in medical study, and over the 2 years, he studied many medical jutsu and concepts as well. There were theories on how to identify pressure point based on movements, as well as ways to light up one's tenketsus so that they could be identified and closed. There were even ways to mess with a person's tenketsus through the use of chakra-charged needles and precision throwing. In addition to this knowledge, Naruto found styles which combined slow and strong strikes with quick jabs, and taijutsu styles that incorporated medical jutsu such as chakra scalpels and element swords of fire, wind, and lightning. Though these jutsu would be incredibly difficult to perform, they would be theoretically possible. The Raijin sword the Nidaime Hokage used likely inspired this style of combat, even if the Nidaime rarely used the sword for physical combat to begin with. More concepts such as those of hitting and breaking joints, using spinning to create momentum and power without loss of speed, and using certain moves to grapple and choke an opponent, along with many other styles, piqued Naruto's interest to the point where he began taking notes to create his own style of fighting. Though the name came in stages, Naruto eventually named his style Dance of the Nine-Tailed Fox, for the destructive nature of the style in addition to the seemingly unbeatable defense created by keeping on the attack. In addition, because of his seal work, Naruto quickly began using gravity seals to increase his strength, and by the end of the 2 years, his strength was that of a low-level chunin. Admittedly, had more time been spent training his body, he probably could have brought that power up. However, taijutsu was not his only focus. For genjutsu, Naruto learned about the senses, how to manipulate air waves with chakra, and a few other basic genjutsu skills. However, Most of the time spent on this section of the library was spent on looking through the genjutsu scrolls and books, almost all of which had to do with the theory of the art. The main theory of genjutsu is to use it to fool your enemy into thinking differently than normal. Upon looking through the scrolls, Naruto encountered many different kinds, including lower levels which only dealt with one or two senses, up to higher level ones that can block all of a shinobi's senses, including touch, smell, taste, hearing, sight, and chakra resonance, sensing another person's chakra signature. In addition, he learned of the true use of illusions, images that appear to be real but aren't. Recorded in the scrolls were various descriptions of techniques which supposedly created horrific images in order to incapacitate a ninja with their own fear. Along with this, were genjutsus which would lure shinobis into traps, or make it so every time a shinobi thought they were going left, they would move to their right. More and more ideas flew towards Naruto, as the possibilities grew with more knowledge. One of the most practical and funny jutsus he thought of came from that time he had fetched women's underwear for that elderly white-haired man. Because of the knowledge gained from the general library, Naruto could now identify people like him as perverts, but it also gave way to the idea of a new use of henge. Having one day found a copy of Ika Paradise among the books in the main library on the third floor, Naruto created his own jutsu to deal with perverts, christened Oiroku no Jutsu, sexy technique. The first time the boy used it was a little over a month ago. 1 month ago, Hokage and Naruto piped up as he left the library to go to sleep, not noticing the middle-aged female diplomat with his grandfather in the private meeting room. Naruto, I told you. I'm not old and don't call me that in front of guests. Sarutobi told his young adopted son. Gomen, I did not see the woman next to you. Still, can I show you a great jutsu I came up with? I guarantee it'll knock you out like a light. Naruto's voice grew gradually over the course of the sentence, and before Sarutobi could respond, Naruto had shouted Oiroku no Jutsu, and turned into a 16-year-old girl, completely nude. Wisps of smoke covered the naughtier bits, but she was still a beautiful woman. Long blonde pigtails ran halfway down her back, sky-blue eyes, whisker marks, giving that little bit of cat naughtiness, large shapely, a sleek thin body, long luscious legs, and striking a seductive pose. Naruto-chan now stood before an unconscious Hokage, with blood streaming from his nose, positioned about 3 feet behind where he was due to the force of the burst. When Naruto cancelled the jutsu, he looked over to the woman, who still had a giant sweat drop on her head. Trying to be polite, Naruto offered for her to stay the night. In order to solidify relationships, the diplomat did not reveal the embarrassing situation, though she had quite a thing to tell people should the alliance falter. And flashback. Though his genjutsu and taijutsu skills grew, ninjutsu was quickly became the favorite. Having studied the theories of basic chakra control, as well as more advanced theories and uses for chakra, Naruto found new ways to practice chakra control that could quickly raise a ninja to jounin level control, if they could use Kage Bunshin well. The idea Naruto came across is that the hardest way to control chakra is to center it in one body part, then release it. The hardest form of control is to try to release chakra from a single tenketsu, instead of a large area. By dispelling Kage Bunshin, the controller can try to make sure the chakra returns to a specific tenketsu on the body. Since the chakra has to enter the body, forcing outside chakra to enter at a certain point means training control outside and within the body. Doing this for 2 years, Naruto's chakra control rose up to that of an experienced jounin medic Nin, rivaling Tsunade's. Because of this, Naruto was able to reach 100 clones staying alive for more than a day without collapsing from exhaustion. However, this discovery led to a greater interest in ninjutsus. With such perfect control and understand of theories, any jutsu could become simple, once he learned how to mold chakra better. Once discovered that his elemental affinity was neutral, Naruto found that he could perform jutsus of almost every element, excluding those that needed a bloodline to use. Water, fire, earth, lightning, wind. Just by looking at the jutsus, Naruto found himself pretty sure that he could use them even if only working on them for a short amount of time. Thus, the idea of causing mass destruction with very little drain on himself became a most attractive idea, and over the course of the 2 years, Naruto could manipulate all of the 5 possible elements for him, and do it well. Naruto even created some double-element ninjutsus, including a lightning-enhanced Katan Hausenka no Jutsu, fire release, phoenix flower technique, and a water-enhanced earth jutsu, Doton Suiton, Teppadama no Jutsu, earth-water release, mud bullet, a new technique created by Naruto which functions like the Hausenka, but stick the opponent to the ground. As said before, ninjutsu was a talent for Naruto. However, out of all these talents, the one for which Naruto held the greatest affinity was Fuinjutsu, the art of sealing. The possibility to create powerful, unbeatable jutsus was at Naruto's fingertips when he came upon the first Fuinjutsu scroll. This form of technique took up the most space in the library, over 400 scrolls on the theory, kinds of seals, uses, concepts, and more all within the library's walls. Scrolls of sealing were the most interesting, and according to several sources, their power went up to the point where demons could be sealed away, since that was really the only way to dispose of them. Of course, along with his normal reading in the loft on the 3rd floor, Naruto learned a great many things about the sealing of the Kyubi no Kitsune no Yukai, and how his hero, the Yondaime, managed to seal the creature, despite that he had been told it had been killed, in fact, on the day of his birthday. Seeing that this was knowledge privy only to the Hokage, Naruto took great interest in reading about it, and found that the kyuubi had been sealed into a newborn child. However, it was then that Naruto noticed he had ventured into Ajizan's personal section of the library, and decided to ignore what he saw and asked said Hokage about it some time later. A 6-year-old should not know such things, he thought, and I don't want to make him angry. I'll ask when I come across a seal like that one, so I have an excuse. Continued study in Fuinjutsu showed such possibilities as sealing enemies, at a more advanced level, sealing items, and making explosives. If there was a faster way to do seals than drawing them, then Fuinjutsu would be the most powerful type. As the 2 years came to an end, after having read and learned so much, and increasing his knowledge to a point where very few would ever outsmart him, Old Man Hokage decided to give Naruto a written test based on the subjects, questions only he and perhaps Kakashi or Shikamaru Nara could answer. However, Naruto passed with flying colors, and at this point, Sarutobi labeled him a prodigy. Truly, he was a genius ninja. The next day, Naruto was to be sent to the academy. However, this led to a heated discussion. Ajizan, I know way more than anyone else there, and I bet I'm better at everything than all of them. Why do I have to go to the academy? Naruto, you may be a prodigy, but you can't just get everything your way. It will be a beneficial experience for you. Plus, you'll be able to make some friends. You haven't been out of this house once these whole 2 years, except 2 or 3 times for ramen. You've worked plenty for your age, and your youth only comes once. Have fun for once. But can't I just graduate early? Can't you promote me to genin or something? Naruto continued whining while leaving Sarutobi deep in thought. He's right. He's far beyond the level of any genin, and most chunin, and I promised the council that I would increase his power to the point where he could help in combat. Really nothing I can do. Sarutobi snapped out of his thoughts and returned to talking to Naruto. Naruto, be quiet and let me think. I can't make him jounin. He isn't mature enough. However, he could pass as a chunin. But how to make him act more responsibly? Once again snapping from his thought, Sarutobi put on a malicious grin. Oh Naruto, Sarutobi whispered in a devilish tone. Naruto immediately stopped and looked up in fear. The only time he looks at me like that is when he's going to do something I really won't like. Naruto, you will be going to the academy, Sarutobi stated with confidence and authority in his voice. What? But I'm so much better than them, Naruto yelled. Sarutobi simply nodded in agreement before continuing on. Yes, that is true, but what you lack is humbleness, you lack responsibility. You may be a great strategist, but you are not a leader. You have great knowledge that would be beneficial to spread. You will be going to the academy as a teacher. At this, Naruto's jaw dropped. Why? Was the only response Naruto could think of in his current predicament. With the eloquence of a practiced speaker, Sarutobi replied in a steady voice. The previous teacher, Irika Sensei, lost his assistant Mizuki a few days ago, since the traitor attempted to use a student who wanted to graduate to steal the forbidden scroll. Irika needs a new assistant, and what better way than to send my prodigy of a son to him to help. You'll be able to play with children your own age, and at the same time learn what it takes to act like a responsible adult, while remaining humble and authority a step above you. I will inform Irika of the change in plans. Report there at 5:30 a.m. tomorrow morning and meet with him. He's the one with the scar on his nose and pineapple nose, room 105. Now go get some rest, and make sure you do as he says. If I hear any complaints from him, I'm restricting your use of the library. The ultimate penalty. The look of horror on Naruto's face at the thought of his research being stopped was plenty of evidence for Sarutobi that he had reached Naruto. Also, the thought of getting up even earlier, at about 5 a.m. in order to be there on time, struck Naruto as possibly one of the worst schedule adjustments of all time. Being that it was already 9 p.m., Naruto went off to bed. Tomorrow would be a strange day. Getting up at the blissful time of 6 a.m., Naruto sat up in his bed and wandered off to his shower, took a nice long bath, and returned to get ready for the day. Noticing the nice clothing laid out already, as he had put it there last night, he slipped it on. An old black muscle shirt stretched its way across his muscular chest. On top of this he wore an orange shirt with a black spiral on the back. Slipping on his gray and black camo cargo shorts over his bright orange boxers, he slowly sat on his bed and began fastening his black ninja sandals. Then, moving in front of the mirror, he sluggishly combed his hair, leaving it in approximately the same place it was when he woke up, and walked downstairs. Grabbing some cereal and milk, he downed 3 bowls in just under 5 minutes, then headed to the library. As soon as he sat down to create kage bunshins, he noticed something was off. There were no books littered across the tables, there were no open scrolls, there was nothing left to do but reread what was there for greater future benefit, and that is when the conversation of last night came drifting back to mind. Checking the time as his heart rate gradually increased, Naruto saw that it was already 6:45 a.m., the academy started lessons 15 minutes ago, he was supposed to meet with Irika an hour and 15 minutes ago. While these thoughts passed through his mind, the chorus of people yelling duh in his head grew louder and louder, with a scream of holy F#INGS and a few other choice words that the housekeepers wondered where he learned. he was off at a speed that would make a snail look fast. A moment later, after dispelling his gravity seals, he made a beeline for the academy. However, now the snail was somewhat envious. On the journey, Naruto's mind drifted back to parts of the discussion with his grandfather last night. Sarutobi had mentioned that if he taught well at the academy, that 6 years from now, when that class graduated, he would be permitted to rise to the rank of Chunin. The thought of a good recommendation and becoming one step closer to Hokage spurred Naruto's strength, as he increased his pace. Arriving 10 minutes later, the blonde shinobi racked his mind for what room he was supposed to be in. Since he clearly wasn't thinking straight, he bypassed the front desk and ran down the hallways and upstairs until he remembered he was supposed to be in room 105, 2 floors down. Returning down the stairs and down the hallway, he found the room situated right across from the front desk. How stupidly ironic was one of a few thoughts that passed through his mind. Seeing the young blonde simply staring at the door, the young receptionist shinobi on duty decided to find out what was going on. "Excuse me? Ahem, sir? Do you need some help?" Looking over, Naruto found himself staring at quite possibly the most beautiful woman he had ever seen. She was roughly 14 years old, 5 feet 8 inches with blonde hair down to her mid-back and a cute round face. Her bust was average size, and she appeared to be in great shape, as though she trained every day. She had a great natural beauty about her, one you couldn't develop. You had to be born with a body like that. However, Naruto suppressed his blush, mostly because of the overwhelming feeling of shock from seeing her weapon. Leaning on the side of the desk was a sword the size of her that appeared to be giving off its own green chakra. The unusual weapon was emitting a humming noise the closer Naruto moved towards it. However, God only knows why. "Ahem, yeah? I'm here to meet with Irika-sensei. I'm kinda late," Naruto said, stuttering only slightly, though she didn't appear to notice. So you're a student? Well, feel free to go right in. He's an easygoing guy and it's the first day, so you should be fine." She spoke in a confident tone, as her sword continued to hum. The fact that it was changing tone, as if singing a tune, only served to unnerve Naruto further. No. I'm his teaching assistant. I was supposed to be here about an hour and a half ago. I overslept a little this time. Feeling a bit overwhelmed, he decided to figure out something about her. Miss, what's your name?" "Aliera, and don't be so nervous. My sword won't hurt you. It's just happy to have someone around with lots of chakra. You'll be fine." "So, you're the teaching assistant? Tell you what, I'll just ask him to take a break for a moment so you won't be interrupting his class directly. That sound okay with you?" Yeah? Thanks, that sounds perfect." Naruto subsequently became less nervous when the sword suddenly stopped humming. Holding down a small intercom button, Aliera announced through the PA, "Irika, we have someone here to see you. Could you please report to the front desk?" With that, they waited only a few moments before Irika emerged from his classroom, asking Aliera, "Why can't you just knock on my door? I'm only 10 feet away, you know." "Sorry, couldn't be bothered. I've got to go deliver some stuff to a teacher upstairs. I'll leave you two alone." And with that, the mysterious woman grabbed her sword and walked upstairs. Irika then turned to Naruto. "So, you're Sarutobi's kid then? You're late, kid, really late. Tell you what, I know what happens to you if Sarutobi gets a bad report from me, so if you can go in there, prove your worth, and keep those kids awake for the entire lecture, then I'll let this little error pass by." Over the course of this little talk, Naruto's expression changed from fear, to acceptance, to enthusiasm. At this, Irika smiled and walked back into the classroom, Naruto following closely behind. As they entered the room, few had turned. Most of the children just kept talking with their friends. Irika gave Naruto a little wink, signaling for him to get the room's attention. Naruto winked back, and began doing hand seals. 25 seals, and 3 seconds later, he announced his jutsu. "Right on, thunderclap no jutsu, A/N. I don't have an English/Japanese translator. If someone could send me one, it would be greatly appreciated." At the announcement of this jutsu, Irika quickly covered his ears, while the rest of the genins heard thunderclap loud enough for their ear to pop, and in Kiba's case, cause him to roll to the ground in pain. Everyone's eyes were on Kiba, then on the person who used the jutsu, who simply pointed to Irika. Needless to say, they got the message. After a few moments, Naruto trekked up to Kiba's location, and began healing his ears. After a few moments, he seemed to be perfectly fine again, if a teensy bit sore. Looking at his medic in wonderment, he was the first to ask, "Who are you?" "I'm Sarutobi Uzumaki Naruto, assistant teacher to Irika-sensei." At this, all but 2 of the class looked at the boy, wondering just where he learned how to heal people. The first also looked at him, except with a blush on her face. Wearing a coat and black ninja pants, the dark blue-haired girl with white eyes tried to keep her head from becoming a tomato, but with little success. It didn't help her much that the boy was wearing baggy pants, and she could see his boxers, nor did it help that the orange shirt and the angle of the sun made him look a god among men. He was clearly quite ripped for a boy his age, and had a nice tan. His golden hair was growing longer, down his neck, and he appeared to be a very knowledgeable person, confident, everything Hyuga Hinata wanted to be. However, the other person who was not looking at him merely let out a snort. "Uchiha Sasuke, prodigy of the Uchiha clan, was not as strong as Itachi but was still considered the strongest starting academy student. Dobe, you're wasting your chakra. Someone as weak as him doesn't deserve healing, especially from a low-class baka like you who can't even get into the academy. Looking down the rows of seats, Naruto spotted the one who had made the comment. Seeing the Uchiha crest on the back, he knew that this class was going to be tough to keep in line. An arrogant clan such as theirs spouting so-called prodigies was one of his least favorite ideas, especially since the Uchihas gained power by stealing jutsu from others. For your information, Uchiha Sasuke, you'd best watch what you say, because if you get out of line here you will pay the consequences. Now everyone look up front. I believe Irika-sensei wanted your attention. Already I hate this responsibility thing. Why can't I just be at home reading scrolls? What kind of friends can you make when you have to be in charge of people? It wasn't clear to the class exactly who Naruto was, even after his announcement. Irika, sensing this, decided to clarify. He is indeed telling the truth. This is Sarutobi Uzumaki Naruto, our aide and son of the third Hokage. His son? How is that possible? He must have been 55 when he had him with his wife. That isn't possible. Voiced one of the students. Ugh, I knew I was gonna have to explain this. Rocking his head in his hands for a brief moment, then lifting it up, Naruto addressed the class. I am an adopted child. I was abandoned and the Sarutobis found me and took me in, very much like the Yondaime, who was also an orphan, found and trained. I do not know who my parents are, nor do I know my true origins, whether they be with Konoha or some other nation. I am greatly educated in many forms of combat, including various styles of taijutsu, a large arsenal of ninjutsu, and some genjutsu. I also specialize in fuinjutsus, as to be honest, it is probably the coolest shinobi art ever. Saying the last part with great enthusiasm, he got several odd glances, mostly from people who had no clue what fuinjutsu was. However, this did not put off the young blonde. I'm also here as the teacher's aide for the next few years. Since I already know a great deal, I am here to share my expertise and help all of you become genin. Now pay attention to Irika or I'll use another jutsu on one of you, one you most certainly won't find pleasant. The rest of the early part of the day passed without incidents. When it came time for lunch, Naruto decided to just sit out with the rest of the kids, despite Irika's offer for him to eat in the teacher's lounge. Sitting on a bench, Naruto took out some ramen in an oversized thermos and began eating. Looking around, he saw various kids doing all sorts of interesting things. Various random ninja kids were playing on the swing set, going down slides, and playing on the monkey bars. A kid, who Naruto learned was named Shino, was playing with an anthill, seemingly fascinated by their behavior. Meanwhile, the girl whom Naruto learned to be Hinata Hyuga of the main branch, was stealing looks at him while he pretended not to notice. Who knows, maybe she'll become a good friend. The Uchiha boy was off in a dark corner, trying to dodge numerous fangirls including a pink-haired girl named Sakura, and a blonde-haired girl named Ino. They appeared to be the two smartest girls in their class, but looking underneath it was clear that Hinata had the same smarts as them, if not better, despite her lack of confidence. Then off in the shade of a tree there was a rather pudgy young man, whom Naruto saw to be an Akimichi, though he couldn't remember his first name, and Nara Shikamaru, who clearly had a very high IQ for his age. Naruto may be smart, but that kid was gonna be a genius. A strategist like him is someone you don't want on another side of a war. And lastly there was that Kiba kid, apparently from the Inuzukas, who was currently striding up to the bench with an arrogant smirk on his face, which as he neared was becoming a large grin. The change in attitude Naruto couldn't understand until he realized the kid was trying to act big in front of other kids. Though this did not sit especially well, Naruto couldn't blame him, since he actually thought the Inuzuka clan was pretty cool if a bit stinky. Hey, thanks for earlier today, where'd you learn all that stuff? He had the voice of a surfer on pot, but it was a friendly voice. I studied scrolls for 2 years, you'd think I'd pick a few things up. Naruto retorted, though without malice. Ah, sweet. Say, think you could show me a few things? His voice was genuine, and he seemed willing to learn. May as well give it a shot. Yeah, sure. You know how to use chakra? Yeah. You gonna teach me a jutsu? Though he was trying to suppress his eagerness in an attempt to look cool, the gleam in his eyes spoke more words than he ever could. Sure. Let me check your affinity. Channel some chakra into this card. Holding out a card to Kiba, the boy did as told. The card split in half then turned to dust. You appear to have 2 affinities, a rather rare circumstance. Wind and earth, wind especially is rare. Well, I'll show you something basic. Follow my seals. Making 3 hand seals, the young blonde spoke quietly Doton, inner decapitation technique, then sunk into the ground and pulled Kiba down so that only his head was exposed above the ground. Then, turning away from the boy, Naruto walked away. Or was going to until he realized he'd left Kiba in the ground. Turning around, Naruto pulled the young Inuzuka out of the ground, and looked him over. Kiba was an oddity to Naruto. The beastly look of his brown hair and face, in addition to his abnormally long canines and the red paint and streaks under his eyes made him look like a wild animal. The furry coat he wore and gray ninja pants made no great impression on Naruto, so he simply got up, and returned to his bench, continuing to eat his ramen. Hey man, thanks. Your name's Naruto, right? A mere nod of the affirmative answered his question. Okay then, Naruto, I'll see you around once I get the hang of that jutsu. Then lowering his voice, he moved closer and said, but don't use that on me in front of girls. The blush on the Inuzuka's face immediately told Naruto this guy was at least some kind of pervert, and by the looks of it, he would have gotten along great with that white-haired man from a little while ago, who he'd seen peeping at girls in the hot springs. Sighing, Naruto turned back to his lunch until the bell rang, then trudged back inside among the other students. Upon re-entering the classroom, Naruto noticed Sasuke squatting on a desk and arguing with Irika-sensei. Though choosing not to get too involved, the blonde caught bits of the conversation with his advanced senses. However, his advance were also a mystery to him. Every time Naruto had an hearing or seeing exam, he passed with no trouble, even hearing tones that no normal person should have been able to hear, and seeing so sharply, and in such detail that it seemed as though he had telescopes in his eyes. Yet, these thoughts only briefly ran through the blonde's head, and soon he turned his attention back to the raven-haired Uchiha, and then to Irika, who motioned for him to join them. Walking calmly up to the pair, the blonde put on a quizzical look, then asked, "What can I help you with, sensei?" A disturbance happened in the room, caused by a fireball which headed towards a group of young female academy students. I know you were outside the room until just now, therefore the Uchiha is the only one capable of such a feat. I am attempting to reprimand him. But, at this point, Irika was interrupted by a low, guttural growl from the young Uchiha, who then spoke up saying, "Look, they were being annoying and took my food so that they could attempt to feed it to me. I didn't aim to injure them, much, so I did nothing wrong." Finishing with a smug smile, the Uchiha stated, "I'm an Uchiha. I only need to become powerful." However, before Sasuke could move off the desk, he heard an unusual sound, and felt something near his buttocks. Flashback no jutsu. 1 year ago, Naruto was sitting in the library, having been studying for the last few hours. It was now about 2 p.m. and Ajisen was at the Hokage tower. Since Naruto was really having trouble with the scroll he was working on, he decided to say goodbye to his 50 clones and go on a brief walk. However, since going to the village may let the Hokage see him leaving the building, Naruto decided to walk along the outer edge of the estate grounds, until he reached the first of the training fields for genin. In the center of the field was a silver-haired man with blue pants and shirt, a green jounin vest, and a forehead protector which covered one eye. Next to him was a man in green tights wearing a jounin vest and a forehead protector strapped around his waist. Both men looked to be about 19 or so, and were fighting each other. A brief flash of light covered the field, and a half-second later, an odd sound was heard. The silver-haired jounin had just stuck his fingers into the tights-wearing jounin, and flung him into the air, shouting "Ninpo, 1,000 years of pain." The expression on the man's face as he was flung into the air by the power of leverage on his own rectum was priceless. Though it was clear the man could have avoided the attack had he been expecting it, it was a potent move for humiliating an opponent, possibly forcing them to attack blindly, a foolish move for any ninja. And flashback, A/N, I may have gotten the ages wrong. Kakashi was 13 when the Kyuubi came, right? And Guy is the same age. Then they would be 19, correct? With a shout of "Ninpo, 1,000 years of pain," Naruto took away the young Uchiha prodigy's innocence, in front of the whole class who was now watching. Following with their eyes, they saw Sasuke arc over their head and land in front of the bookshelf in the back of the class. Rubbing his buttocks, he recovered and got up, though not without difficulty. As soon as he turned around, however, the entire class burst into laughter. Even some of the fangirls couldn't help but giggle, even though their blonde teacher's aide had just taken away the innocence of their beloved first. Naruto, who had also followed Sasuke's path with his eyes, was wearing a large grin that threatened to split his face in half when he saw Sasuke begin rubbing his cheeks. The prodigy turned a heated glare towards the blonde, but remained silent, not wanting to incur another attack. The glares of other girls also struck Naruto, particularly the ones from Sakura and Ino, who were both restraining themselves to their seats, using sheer willpower to prevent themselves from avenging their Sasuke. When the laughter died down and Sasuke stopped rubbing his butt, about 5 minutes had passed, and class resumed. The rest of the day went by fairly quietly with all the students paying attention, all of them hoping not to incur the wrath of either the thunderclap or the ass poke. And this is how the story of great teacher Naruto began. Waking up on the first day of a new semester, Naruto thought back to all he had accomplished these past 2 years. They had passed with little difficulty. Though he still had 4 years of teaching left to go before he could become a chunin, that wasn't much of a concern. It just meant he had 4 more years to keep training without the challenge of being sent on any dangerous missions. In the past 2 years, Naruto came to be known as Great Teacher Naruto, for his accomplishments at the school. In order to get on Irika's good side, Naruto began to participate in the lectures more, making sure everyone understood before moving on to a new topic, and corrected students who were not paying attention. After a few weeks of corrections, most of the students got the idea and decided to talk outside of class. After the first year, it was suggested that Naruto begin holding his own lectures for students who wished to learn higher-level material, such as theories and the beginning arts of Ninjutsu. Also, many students became friendlier with the young aide. Kiba had accepted Naruto the first day, and a few days after that, Naruto had become friends with a number of people, including Shino, Chuji, Shikamaru, and Hinata. Naruto's encounter with Shikamaru proved to be probably the second most interesting of the four. After learning of Naruto's intelligence, and the fact that he knew how to play shogi, Shikamaru did something no one really expected. Flashback no jutsu, third week of academy. Yo said an apparently bored Shikamaru, carrying a shogi board in pieces, standing over Naruto who lay against a tree in the shade. Wearing a mesh shirt with a tan vest shirt over it, and nondescript pants, he wasn't exactly an imposing figure. The only real oddity about Shikamaru was his hair, which looked sort of like a pineapple if viewed from the correct angle, and the fact that his hobby was lazily watching clouds. Also his IQ over 200, Yo replied the blonde shinobi. Laying back in a white short-sleeved shirt with a pocket on the front, and navy blue cargo shorts, the blonde was an equally unimposing figure. Or would have been if not for the fact that his hair was sticking out in all directions, drawing attention when contrasting with the dark brown-gray bark of the tree. TCH, troublesome. Wanna play? Shikamaru asked in lazy, drawling voice. Sitting down and placing the board on the ground, he began to set up the pieces. With nothing else to do, Naruto helped to set them up, and soon they were in a heated piece-on-piece duel. With expert precision, both players executed flawless board moves throughout the day. Ignoring the bell that ended lunch, and the bell which ended school, the two players were completely immersed in their game. Soon, the children leaving wondered where they had gone, and spying them under a tree, a crowd began to gather. Soon, several students and teachers were watching the game play out. 9 hours later, it had grown dark, and was just a little past 11 p.m. The crowd had shrunk, but still some teachers and students watched, holding lanterns so that the two could see the board. The wind chill made most of the observers think that the players had frozen over, as neither had moved more than an inch in the last hour. Both of them had not eaten since breakfast, and had not slept since 6 a.m., 5 a.m. in Naruto's case, that morning. Only 3 more moves were executed by each player, by midnight, and at this point all the observers decided to go home, leaving 2 lanterns so that the two could make their respective ways home, or so they thought. 6 hours later, deadlocked with few pieces left on each side, the two had played through the night. Both suffering from exhaustion, hunger, and stress, the 2 young boys continued their game. At 6 a.m., students who had left that evening arrived only to see the both of them still under the tree, lanterns alight, continuing their game. The crowd from before gathered only to see that the game was nearly over. The students and teachers filed into the school, sat through their lecture, and the whole time wondered when are they gonna finish that game. While filing out for lunch, almost all of the students of the academy, and all teachers not doing paperwork, about 3 or 4, crowded around the pair. 15 minutes later, Shikamaru was considering his next move, which would likely decide the fate of the game. Moving for the 42nd time into his thinking pose, he planned out his next move. 5 minutes later, he opened his eyes, and moved a piece forward. Naruto, not anticipating the move, began to think about his response. However, hunger and exhaustion was clouding his mind. There was no way he could break away from the game now, it had to be finished. Looking at the board, he analyzed his situation, and saw that he had been mostly trapped within a square of pieces, closing in on his remaining pieces. Going for a final, do-or-die move, Naruto moved a piece 3 spaces forward, once to the left, hoping to redirect the well-planned assault. He was not so lucky. Seeing the diversion for what it was, Shikamaru moved the last piece ahead a space, instead of taking Naruto's bait, and with that, Shikamaru won. Then both boys collapsed from exhaustion and lack of food. They woke up the next day in their respective homes, and unknowing of what the other was doing, they both climbed up to their respective roofs, and watched the clouds pass by. The most epic game of shogi ever played, someone had finally beaten GTN at something. End flashback. Thinking back to the game and how fatigued he was afterwards, Naruto got out of his bed and made his way to the shower. Stripping off his clothes to reveal his tanned, well-muscled body, Naruto hopped into the shower. This caused Naruto to remember how he had first met Hinata personally. Flashback no jutsu, start of 2nd year of the academy. Naruto was resting after an exhausting training session at the academy grounds, where he had been throwing shuriken. Much to his disappointment, however much he had studied weaponry when going through taijutsu and the few random kenjutsu scrolls in the library, he still found it difficult to throw the shuriken correctly, accurately, and quickly, with power behind the throw. After a 3-hour training session, along with the help of 100 clones, Naruto learned to throw the stars with a measure of proficiency, as long as he was standing still. Noticing the thick layer of grime and sweat on his body from the exertion, he trekked inside to the boys', or so he thought, locker room. Throwing off his clothes to reveal his glistening body, he hopped over to the shower, entered, flipped on the water, and washed away the dirt from his body. 5 minutes later, unbeknownst to the young blonde, a young Hyuga girl entered the locker room. Not noticing the clothing on the floor and bench that was clearly men's, the girl stripped. She too was covered in sweat and grime, since she had been working on her juken rather hard in an indoor training room of the academy. She skipped lightly over to an unoccupied shower and flipped on the water. The young blonde, failing to notice the presence of the girl, began to sing. now that she's back in the atmosphere. With drops of Jupiter in her hair, hey hey. She acts like summer and walks like rain. Reminds me that there's time to change, hey hey. Since the return from her stay on the moon. She listens like spring and she talks like June, hey hey. By the time the second verse began, Hinata had recognized the voice and was blushing furiously. Her crush, the guy who never gave up and worked with all he had, with sun-kissed hair, a perfect body, and a smile that could melt any girl's heart, was in the shower stall next to her singing in a voice, which to her, was heavenly. Not wanting him to stop, she sat down in her stall, so that he couldn't see her. Tell me, did you sail across the sun? Did you make it to the Milky Way to see the lights all faded, and that heaven is overrated? Tell me, did you fall for a shooting star, one without a permanent scar? And did you miss me while you were looking at yourself out there? He continued to sing, the sound of his voice carrying over the sound of water gushing down, and despite the fact that it wasn't particularly warm, it began to heat her up. Her blush was so deep it made tomatoes look dull in color, and as the song progressed, she had to force herself not to rush around the curtain and wall, and cling on to the being who seemed to brighten her days with just a smile and a mere word of encouragement. Not once in the past year of the academy had he used a jutsu on her, ignored her, or done anything harmful. In fact, every day he seemed to smile up at her in her desk, and even if he had just been scouting the room, to her it felt like his eyes, those deep blue oceans, were meant for her. After a particularly good taijutsu spar between her and another girl, the oceans and heart-melting smile turned to her, and he told her, completely honestly, good job. Her hair fluttered, and when the song ended, she couldn't hold it anymore and threw herself around the curtain, around the wall, through his curtain, and into his stall, hugging him as if her life depended on it. Needless to say, Naruto was shocked, as he thought he was in the boys' locker room. He was about to speak, when he realized that the girl grasping him so tightly was none other than Hinata Hyuga, the girl rumored to have a crush on him, and that she was naked. Not being able to help it, his body began to react, and there was soon a hard object rubbing against Hinata, and a moan escaped his lips. Her body reacting as well, she reached up, kissed him on the lips, then left the shower stall. Grabbing a towel, she dried herself off, grabbed her clothes, dressed, and left without a word. The reason that Naruto had not come out after her was because he was frozen in place. In fact, he was stuck in place for quite a long time. Thoughts keep running through his head, none of them making much sense. However, he eventually came to two conclusions. The first was, a naked Hyuga Hinata had just run into his shower stall, pressed against him, kissed him on the lips, and walked out. Due to the fact that he had turned off the shower, and another was still on, and he was pretty sure no one had turned one on since Hinata had left, that Hinata had been there for quite a while and had heard him singing. Turning beet red, Naruto came to his second conclusion. He had no clue why his body reacted the way it did, and that he should ask Ajisen about it later. However, that conversation ended with his Ajisen simply saying, "I'll tell you when you're older," as he appeared to be suppressing another one of those perverted giggles of his. "Oh well, I'll just wait until it comes up again, and try to react in the correct fashion, whatever that is." End flashback. Needless to say, the past year since then, Hinata became bolder and began talking with Naruto. However, she never brought up the shower incident again, and every time she saw him without a shirt, she fainted. Though most other kids could see the cause of this, especially because of the telltale nosebleed, Naruto was oblivious and attributed it to some sort of recurring cold. However, Naruto didn't just teach and make new friends during the 2 years he'd already spent at the academy. Leaving the shower and going to get dressed, Naruto pulled on his clothes, then made 200 Kage Bunshins, which cost less than 5 of Naruto's increasingly large chakra reserve, and sent them off to do their duties. One drawback Naruto found to the Kage Bunshins' learn idea was that they couldn't be used to increase Naruto's speed or power. Since much of Naruto's time was spent teaching, and using a Kage Bunshin to teach was not allowed by Irika, he had little time to increase his physical skills. However, his mental abilities continued to grow, and Aji-sensei even agreed to let Naruto start using the library in the loft of the training dojo outside. Currently, with the help of clones, Naruto was learning more advanced theories, and a new jutsu every month from the dojo library. Considering it held over 1,000 jutsus, and almost that many theories, the progress Naruto was making seemed minimal, despite his clones' work. Still, by the end of 2 years, Naruto had learned a great variety of D and C ranked jutsus, and theories on Fuinjutsu and Ninjutsu that had only been fully applied by the Yandame and Jiraiya, the Toad Sannin. Among the seals Naruto learned to use were storage seals, explosive note seals, and the beginnings of human sealing, a forbidden art which developed into the sealing of the bijou, as the seals grew to greater levels. The human sealing seemed morbid to Naruto, but he quickly brushed off the thought when he noticed how useful such seals could become. Leaving his room and heading downstairs, Naruto noticed something was wrong. Usually, at this time in the morning, Aji-san was leaning back in a chair with a hot cup of coffee in one hand, a book in the other, in a position so far back that if Naruto had never seen his Aji-san sit that way, he'd be sure that the old man would fall and break a hip. However, there was no Aji-san that morning. Maybe he just went to the tower early today. With that thought, the young blonde shoveled down breakfast, then raced off to the academy. On the way there, Naruto regretfully remembered what happened just last week. Flashback no jutsu, 1 week ago. Hey Aliera, how's it going? Naruto asked, in his usual friendly tone. Every day since he had first arrived, Aliera had always greeted him with a warm smile and pleasant conversation before Naruto headed off to help Irika. It's going pretty well. I'm up for the Jounin exams soon. I'll be gone next week. Just think. I could be a Jounin. In a few years I may even get my own team. It was well known among those who knew her that Aliera wanted children, but sadly she couldn't conceive due to an injury from a mission when she was 10 years old. Naruto had started to feel like something of a younger brother around her, even though she was about twice his age. Aliera Nechan is gonna be a Jounin. Believe it! It had only been 2 years since Naruto had started helping to teach, and though he was maturing, sometimes he seemed just the like 8-year-old kid he was. Yup. Now be good while I'm gone, and be nice to the receptionist. I don't want to have to worry about angry coworkers beating on my little bro while I'm gone. Got that? Yes, Nechan. I gotta go now, time to help teach the brats. You're a brat too, Nechan. Were the last words Naruto whined before entering the room for another day of lectures, keeping kids awake, and building his reputation as GTN. End flashback. Arriving at the academy, Naruto noticed most of the lights were off. Considering there was a strong overcast of dark gray clouds, the lack of lights confused Naruto. Heading off for the front desk, Naruto found the new receptionist, a cute woman about 22 years old, with a serious look on her face, staring at Naruto. What's going on? The young blonde inquired, noticing the mood and lowering his tone of voice. There was a disturbance last night over by the Uchiha district. Apparently only one was left alive, the rest killed by Uchiha, Itachi. The Hokage asked me to send you home when you arrived. Don't worry, there likely won't be any classes until this issue is sorted out. Itachi? Itachi killed the clan? How can that be? I need to figure out what's going on. Thank you, muttered Naruto. Turning on his heel, the young prodigy walked out into the coming storm to find out what he could do. For the first time in his life, Naruto felt helpless. Though he didn't really care much for Sasuke, Naruto respected his skills as a prodigy. Also, not that the Uchiha was likely just like him, an orphan, Naruto felt a certain amount of sympathy for the boy, even if he wasn't exactly the most likable guy. However, what burned at Naruto was that the Uchihas were just like the Hyugas, inter-clan marriages, the less powerful serving the more powerful families of the clan, and the fact that Naruto hadn't known the massacre had occurred. Swearing to himself yet again that he would change the clans of the village, so that no child would be thrown away, he slowly walked home. That night, Sarutobi explained the incident to Naruto in detail, also explaining that Sasuke had suffered a very traumatic experience. Apparently his brother used a powerful genjutsu on the boy, making him live through the massacre of his family, and thus Sasuke would no longer be in the class, until it was deemed that he was of sufficient mental stability to continue his work. Also, refusing to accept hospitality, the boy was put into a mental facility by force, if only to temporarily measure his mental capacity. Though Sasuke might not be in the class any longer, Naruto was not happy. The boy was not just as bad off as he had been at birth, if not worse. Unfortunately, classes didn't resume for a whole month, but from that point on, the class changed. Sasuke wasn't out for any normal power, he was out for the power to defeat his brother and revive the clan. Though no one ever heard this from Naruto, that night he promised to himself, once I become Hokage, I will help him rebuild the clan, so that the Uchiha massacre will not be a tragedy, it will be the birth of the new clan system of Konoha. Naruto got up, stretched, shut off his alarm, and went through his normal routine. Today was the day he would finally end his service as the once famed great teacher Naruto, the teacher's aide who gave advanced lectures on theories that even some of the teachers were having problems with. The blonde who had encouraged his students to better, kept them at attention, and made sure they all got a proper education, even the fangirls. For years had passed since the Uchiha massacre. Though Sasuke was clearly not in a very stable state of mind, he was released in only a month and returned to the academy without having to attend any makeup courses. All returned to normal, except that Sasuke's fangirls now not only wanted to be with him, but they wanted to save his dark heart and bear his children so that they may revive his clan. The dark preteen had labeled himself an Avenger, and the rumor around the village was that he planned to gain the power to defeat Itachi himself. Deciding he had meandered over this topic in his head long enough, Naruto tried to shut the thoughts out of his mind. As soon as Sasuke came back, Naruto had found that the Uchiha wasn't really interested in re-establishing his clan, which was made especially clear by his apt attention to Irika-sensei and his apparent disinterest in girls, which made Naruto consider that the Uchiha may have become gay. Frowning disgustedly at the thought of the great Uchiha prodigy prancing around in a green tights, much like the ones that the overenthusiastic youthful Mato guy wore, Naruto pushed the thoughts out of his head, only to be replaced by memories. In the past 4 years, Naruto had made many improvements. He had learned all the D and C ranked jutsus in Aji-san's dojo library, and had learned several B and A ranked ones. The only reason he didn't know more was that Naruto had devoted much of his time to Fujinjutsu. Naruto's skill had reached the point where he could modify explosive tags to form specific shapes of explosions, increase the power, or even direct the explosion in a certain direction. Also, he could write the seals fairly quickly, being able to make a modified explosive tag every 20 seconds without fault. Also, Naruto discovered the art of chain tagging. This was where one tag could set off seals with the chakra, releasing more seals, and more so that one kunai with an exploding tag could be used to blow up a whole building. However, explosive seals wasn't the only kind Naruto had discovered. Better weight and gravity seals were found among the scrolls, allowing Naruto to help his taijutsu further. Stamina seals were yet another worthy discovery. The theory of the stamina seal was that by draining life force, the user of the seal could quadruple their chakra supply. By making Kage Bunshins with a small amount of life force in them, so insignificant that it would only cost Naruto a day of his life, Naruto could keep his Kage Bunshin alive 4 hours. By putting a stamina seal on a Kage Bunshin, it became nearly impossible to tell apart from the original, as it could take many hits to dispel the clone. Discovering this when he was a mere 9 years old, Naruto used this technique to replace himself with clones and skip out to train taijutsu. With this additional training, Naruto could soon rival most jounin with his speed and strength, excluding Madogai of course. In doing this, Naruto also added to and fully mastered his style, known as Dance of the Nine-Tailed Fox, which he had created a little over 5 years ago. With his ninjutsu, genjutsu, taijutsu, and fujinjutsu progressing as it was, in addition to his more mature nature, knack for strategy, and the ability to lead, Naruto had gotten a good recommendation from Irika, and today would be promoted. On his way to the academy, for what was likely to be the last time in his life, he remembered what had happened just a few months after the massacre. Flashback no jutsu, a few years ago. "Hey brat," said a familiar voice from the trees in the training area. "Nei-chan, you're back," was the enthusiastic response. The blonde shinobi turned to see his self-proclaimed big sister looking down at him. "Yup, and guess what? I passed." "I'm a joun." As soon as she said she passed, Naruto leapt into the air, landed on the branch, and embraced her. Patting him on the head, she gradually pulled away from the hug, and looked to him with concern, noticing his tears. "Naruto, what's wrong? This means you won't be around to hang out with me anymore." Sobbing, Naruto turned away and was about to jump when arms wrapped around him again. Hanging there for a second, in her arms, he knew he'd miss having her around. Her smile had always brightened his day, and now he'd hardly get to see her, if ever. "Silly little bro, sure, I'll see you less, but I promise I'll see you on my days off. And I'll treat you to ramen, okay?" After a brief pause, Naruto spoke again with a mischievous tone. "You're on a day off now, aren't you? Yeah, let's go." And with that, Naruto leapt off the branch, ranting about the ramen he was going to get. Holding her head in her hands, Aliera joined him and soon they were both chowing down on Ichiraku ramen. And flashback. Sure, the new receptionist was nice and pretty, but she wasn't Nei-chan. Aliera was now going to be a jounin sensei though, and maybe when they started doing C-ranked missions, Naruto would be able to join in. Yes though Naruto, when they go on their first one, I'll get to spend at least a week just hanging out with Nei-chan, maybe Hinata too, if I'm lucky. Wait, Haim? Where'd that come from? Though Naruto didn't notice it, he had been spending a lot more time with Hinata, helping her out more and talking with her. They never once mentioned the shower incident, but since then his feelings for her grew, and though he didn't know it, Naruto was falling in love. Arriving at the academy, Naruto strode to the room where he had been going nearly every day for the last 6 years. Entering the room, Naruto just went to sit next to Hinata, on a desk as usual. There were 30 other people in the room, the people who had graduated and were going to be assigned their teams that day. After half an hour of idle chit-chat, Irika entered the room. Before Naruto could make a hand sign, everyone quieted and looked up front. Okay, I will now be announcing the teams for his year. Team 1A/N. I don't want to make up names, they aren't important. Team 7 will be Uchiha. Sasuke. Time seemed to drag on forever as every girl in the class who hadn't been called drew in their breath. Haruno Sakura. A loud shout of victory rang out as the pink-haired cherry blossom girl danced in victory. And sigh. Everyone turned to look at his expression, only to see that he was once again just staring at the wall with a blank look. Your jounin sensei will be Hatake Kakashi. Team 8 will be Hyuga Hinata, Aburame Shino, and Inuzuka Kiba. This came as no surprise to the classroom, as few cared. Naruto was just happy his Hinata was with 2 friends. Your jounin sensei will be Ikurin Aliera. This came as a surprise to Naruto, since he never figured that he would get so lucky to be able to see his Nei-chan and Hinata at the same time. All those years of teaching and he finally got something out of it, something real good. Team 10 will be Naro Shikamaru, Akimichi Tsuji, and Yamanaka Ino. Sighing, the downtrodden Ino slipped out of her chair and fell onto the floor, defeated. She had been placed with a lazy butt and a fat guy, while her rival Sakura was on Sasuke's team. Your jounin sensei will be Sarutobi Asuma. At the mention of Sarutobi, all eyes turned to Naruto. After quickly explaining their relation, Naruto was off the hook. Aliera arrived only a few minutes later to pick up her team, and when they left, Naruto was off to see the Hokage. With Aliera, well, let's go find someplace quiet to talk, this won't take too long. Heading into an empty classroom, Aliera and the rest of teammates sat down to talk. Well, if we're gonna be a team, we have to know about each other. Here, I'll start. My name is Aliera Ikurin, and I am a jounin of Konoha. I like ramen, kids, and learning more kenjutsu. I dislike egotists and perverts. My hobbies are listening to music, reading, and hanging out with my friends, particularly Naruto. My dreams for the future are to adopt a kid and be on part with one of the Mist's 7 swordsmen. Turning her attention to the Inuzuka, she said, "Hey mutt, introduce yourself." Growling at the implied statement that he is a dog, he hastily started. "My name is Inuzuka Kiba. I like reading manga, playing with Akamaru," and blushing, Kiba briefly examined Aliera's body. On that day she was wearing a tight blue jounin outfit with a green vest, and her sword lay beside her. She was crouching, and when his view reached her legs, they disappeared, and he was smacked over the head by a large fist. "Oh. What was that for?" he growled pitifully. "I said I didn't like perverts." "Now keep your eyes off, I'm not a show for you," Aliera said reproachfully. Then nodding to him, the beastly boy continued, "I dislike stuck-up girls like you." Another bop to the head. Taking a more respectful tone out of fear for his health, he once again continued, "I don't like people who make fun of others and those that insult my clan for its practices. My hobbies are playing with Akamaru, hanging out with friends, and learning new jutsus. My dream for the future is to become the head of my clan and help Naruto become Hokage and reform the clan system." So he's heard of Naruto's dream, eh? Interesting. Okay, now you in the coat. "I am Aburaim Shino. I like bugs. I dislike people who kill bugs. My hobby is learning my clan's bug techniques. My dreams for the future are to become head of my clan and creating new bug techniques." He spoke in a monotone voice, which slightly unnerved Aliera. Great, a bug user. Bugs are gross. Well, at least he's supposed to be pretty good. At least he won't be problematic. Taking the initiative, the girl began to talk in a way that would be considered uncharacteristic of her just a few years ago. "My name is Hinata. I like Naruto-kun, practicing my taijutsu, and visiting with friends. I dislike arrogant people, and my clan because of the way it has separated me from my cousin. My hobbies are practicing the Jukin and reading. My dreams for the future are fixing the Hyuga clan, and helping Naruto-kun." So he, after a long pause and her growing blush, she turned away from the group. Sighing, Aliera decided to just get this thing over with. "Okay, now that we know each other, I suggest you go home and train, and make sure you get a good night's rest. Tomorrow, meet me at training ground 14 for your genin test." "Wait. I thought we already did the genin test? We have the forehead protectors," Kiba yelled, much to the surprise of Hinata and Shino, who were both rubbing their injured ears. "Kiba, you don't have to yell. She's right here," Shino stated in a surprisingly calm voice. Before Kiba could tell Shino off, Aliera cut in. "No, you passed the academy exam. That was to make sure you were ready for the genin exam. This test is to see if you are good enough to become genin. I must warn you though, this test has a 66 rate of failure. Only 9 of the rookies will pass this test, meaning only 3 teams. The rest of you will all be sent back to the academy. Meet me at the training ground at 9 a.m. sharp, and don't eat, you'd throw it all up anyway." With a wink, Aliera picked up her sword key, strapped it to her back, and shunshined away. Splitting up, the 3 members of Team 8 said their good lucks and goodbyes, and went off to eat, train, or in Hinata's case, find Naruto. With Naruto, "Nah? Aji-san, can I have my vest now?" Naruto was bouncing up and down in the Hokage's office. Having waited patiently for half an hour for the old man, Naruto was beginning to lose patience. "Oh JJ-san. Come on. You said I would get it today." Alright. "Naruto, I'll just finish these later." Pushing the accursed paperwork off to the side, the Hokage turned his attention to the boy in front of him. Reaching into his desk, he pulled out the vest he had put there last night. Removing it from the desk and tossing it to Naruto, the young boy flung it on, smiling brilliantly, his teeth glinting in the morning sun. "Now Naruto, you do lack experience. I know you've trained hard these last 8 years, and you could probably pass as a jounin with your skills, but to become a truly good shinobi, you need field experience, and to work in a team. Therefore, for the next 6 months you will be working with one of this year's teams. Tomorrow night I'll tell you what teams you can join out of the 3 that will pass. Then you can choose from them which one you would like to join. If Aliera Nachan's team passes, I'm with them. No question about that," the boy said with confidence. "And they will pass. After all, I taught them, didn't I?" The Hokage had to mask his laughter at that. Yes, Naruto had taught them some, but they had not learned from him entirely. "You know, you were just an aide. An exceptional aide, but I think they learned from Irika as well. That's another thing you can work on, being humble. Get too cocky and you'll lose every battle. Since I don't have anything else for you, you have today and tomorrow off. Now go train or something, brat," the Hokage told Naruto in a playful tone. Naruto frowned for a brief moment, but then it turned into his radiant smile. "Thanks, Aji-san. Later." And with that, Naruto shined out, leaving a Hokage, who was once again baffled at Naruto's skill. He'd never seen him use the shunshin body flicker technique before. Leaving the tower, Naruto abruptly ran into just the person he was looking for. He was surprised that she had come, considering what happened during their chit-chat earlier. Flashback no jutsu. Earlier that day, Hinata-chan Nano, I was wondering if you'd come visit me at the Hokage tea tower today. You know, after why you meet up with your team? Naruto spoke in a low, nervous tone. Hinata looked somewhat flustered. She had never heard Naruto stutter before. The fact that he was blushing, even lightly, just confused her more. Why yeah. Sure, overeager to get started on the right foot, Naruto moved to hug her, but tripped. Falling, he grabbed onto something, anything for support. However, all he felt was something round and soft. Underneath him was Hinata, and he was holding her left in his left hand. Quickly getting up, he reached down, blushing furiously, he lifted her up. Muttering an apology, he turned away and sat on the desk again, eyes glued to the floor. Right then, before any more awkwardness could occur, Irika walked in. It was as if he had timed it so that I couldn't say any more than that, Hinata thought, looking suspiciously at the blonde, with a blush on her face as well. End flashback. Naruto-kun. Why you wanted to speak with me? Yeah? Follow me? Nodding, she agreed. He led the way for them, walking for a good 5 minutes until they reached a secluded portion of the park near the Hokage Tower. They hadn't spoken a word, he just took her hand, which she blushed at, and led her on. Reaching a rather large tree, he leaned against it, motioning for her to do so as well, which she did. Hinata-chan, would you go out with me on a date tonight? Go out on a date? Hinata thought, completely shocked. She blushed a deep red. She had been dreaming of this moment for many days now, and now that it had come, she didn't know what to say. She knew what she wanted to say, but her mouth complying and forming coherent words seemed beyond her. Reverting back to her shy girl watching from afar days, she simply nodded. Really? He asked, as if the nod was not a definite answer, and partially because he really didn't expect her to agree. Managing to make her mouth work, she spoke. Why yes. I'd love to. Great. I'll come by and pick you up at 5. Then hugging her briefly causing her to squeal, he made off for his apartment to get ready. Tonight would change his life. Trying to pull herself out of the puddle of happiness she had become, Hinata made her way back to her house. Brushing past her father still in a daze, she walked into her room, then yelled for the whole Hyuga household to hear yes. Then began to get ready for her date. Hinata was running frantically about her room. Her father had pushed her to train as soon as she got home, and now she only had half an hour to prepare for her date with Naruto. Why must I be so plain? I don't even have the time to look good. Hopping into the shower, she drenched herself with the warm water, washed her hair to silky perfection, and stepped out lightly in a pink robe which hugged her curves nicely. Moving over to the mirror, she slowly removed the robe, showing herself her body. She was not by any means ugly, and it had been a long time since she had cared much about her looks, but this was Naruto. This was the guy that meant the world to her, and damn it, she wanted to look good for him. Searching through her wardrobe, she found that she had mostly ninja clothes. It wasn't much of a surprise, even as the Hyuga heiress she hadn't attended that many events since she was considered weak in the eyes of her father. Her father, Hayashi, was already considering making her younger sister Hanabi the new heiress, since her Byakugan was stronger than Hinata's. However, this did mean Hinata actually was weak. With Naruto around, she felt like she could do anything, and performed much better than she did when fighting against her father. Just one more reason to look good for Naruto that night. Eventually, Hinata took out a small black dress which hugged her body and reached down halfway to her knees. This dress was a few years old, yet still fit pretty well despite the shortness and length, and it still looked brand new as it hadn't been worn very often. To compensate for the length issue, she took out a pair of light blue jeans and slipped them on. They were faded some, and not very formal, but Hinata suspected Naruto was probably gonna try to take her out for ramen. Though it wouldn't be very fancy, any dinner with Naruto was still good. Noticing she only had 5 minutes left until he arrived, she put on some lipstick, also hoping in her head that there could be a repeat of that kiss in the shower all those years ago. However, thinking of this nearly caused her to faint, so she pushed the thought out of her mind and decided to finish up and wait by the door for her prince to arrive. Hinata Hyuga had a date with Naruto. Naruto rushed home. Deciding to get in a little training, even though he didn't really need it, he produced 1,000 clones and sent them off to work on some of the harder Fujinjutsu theories on human sealing he had found. This area hadn't had a specialist since the Konoha/Iwa war when the last master disappeared in the combat. What was hard for Naruto to understand was why this field of knowledge had been abandoned. It was clearly very powerful, if difficult to use, and with enough experience, such seals could be used in combat. So be able to beat an enemy ninja with just a touch and some chakra, well, a lot of chakra, Naruto found he could seal away enemies rather than fight them. It seemed perfect, if only there was a quick way to do it. Pushing the thoughts out of his mind, he created 2 more Kage Bunshin, put stamina seals on them, and went outside to spar. Having perfected his dance of the 9-tailed fox, Naruto was now just working on his speed. Naruto had long since started using gravity and weight seals, and when they were all released, Naruto could match Mado Guy's speed. However, if Guy were to start opening the gates, Naruto would become quickly overwhelmed. Still, this did not deter Naruto from training, increasing his gravity seals by 1 more times gravity, bringing it up to 25 times normal, and bringing the weights on his ankles and fists up to 300 pounds each, from 250 each, Naruto began his training once again. At 4 p.m. Beaten, cut, and tired, Naruto dispelled his stamina seal enhanced clones and went inside to take a long, hot shower. By the time Naruto finished his shower, all his cuts and bruises had healed, which would have surprised most people, but Naruto was just used to it. He had always been a fast healer. The fact that this was nearly 1,000 times the healing rate of a normal person did not disturb him, though it was a curious aspect of his life. He dried off, and began looking through his wardrobe. As the adopted son of the Hokage, Naruto could have had a wide range of clothing, but for the most part he just had some different colored tank tops, t-shirts, ninja pants, and jeans which he wore for training, and thus had rips and holes in most of them. However, having planned ahead, he had bought some new clothing the previous day to wear just for this occasion. Snickering at how this would likely cause Hinata to faint, he pulled on his clothes. Noting the time was 4:45, he stepped out of the estate and headed off for the Hyuga complex, arriving just a few minutes later. Seeing the guards, he addressed them with a respectful bow, and stated his business. "Good evening. I am here to pick up Hinata for a meeting of sorts. May I go see her?" The guards activated their Byukugans, then nodding to each other, they stepped aside and moved around the building, giving the young man some privacy. Knocking on the door, Naruto called out Hinata. A few moments later, the door was pushed open by a shy girl his height, with white eyes, who couldn't possibly be Hinata. She was wearing a short black dress with jeans underneath which hugged her hips, showing off her feminine body. The dress was tight around both the waist and chest, indicating that it was likely fairly old, but Naruto greatly appreciated it nonetheless. Scanning her body, he noticed she was wearing normal sandals instead of her ninja ones, and that her toenails were a pretty pink color. Her eyes making their way up her gorgeous figure again, he noticed her hair which looked incredibly soft, and the blush that was breaking onto her cheeks. Hinata didn't think she could believe her eyes either. She was almost tempted to activate her Byakugan to make sure it wasn't a henge, but didn't because she had felt the guard's chakra spikes earlier which indicated they had already checked. The man standing before her looked almost as if he was sculpted from stone. She noticed he was taller than her by an inch or two, putting him at roughly 5 feet 2 inches, fairly tall for their age. His hair was golden, as if the sun had created it from its rays, and was short but growing longer, spiky and flowing down the back of his neck. He also had odd whisker mark scars on his face, which made him look cute, yet wild at the same time. Scanning up and down his body, she took in his figure. He was wearing a tight black muscle shirt, with a white dress shirt over it, unbuttoned. It was mildly formal, and looked pretty darn good on him. She could even see his muscles underneath his shirt, and the way that every time he took a breath it seemed like the shirt would simply burst to pieces. He also had on light blue faded jeans, coming down to his feet, on which he wore gray sneakers with orange lines coursing around the edges. Hinata then felt a light tap on her shoulder, and looked up in surprise and embarrassment at being caught eyeing him. However, he washed all embarrassment from her when he spoke. "Hinata, you're beautiful." "Thanks, Naruto-kun. You are handsome as well." Looking down at her, he reached under her chin and moved her face up to see his own. Thinking he was going to kiss her, she complied, but only saw that he was wearing a brilliant smile, and not moving her forward. "Come on, Hinata-chan, let's go. We don't want to be late for the movie." Once again complying without a word, they made their way towards the theaters, engaging in small talk about jutsus and Aliera since she was now her sensei. 2 hours later, the date was going well for the two kids. The movie hadn't been great, but they were more focused on having fun, and what was going on between them. Several times during the movie, Naruto and Hinata's hands had met in the popcorn bag, and soon they just left their hands above it, holding one another's hands and enjoying the softness. Once it ended, the two left the theater, and Naruto was soon leading Hinata wordlessly off to Ichiraku. Wondering what was going on, Hinata was tempted to ask, but not tempted enough to speak because then he might let go of her hand. Reaching Ichiraku, Naruto turned to Hinata. "I figured you weren't all that full from just the popcorn and soda, so I thought we could." "I'd love to have ramen, Naruto." "Come on." Playfully moving ahead of him, Naruto had to jog to catch up and they both soon entered the ramen bar. "A large miso for me," Naruto shouted to the back. They were the only ones there, and their privacy would be respected, unless, "And a large shrimp for me please," Hinata chimed in. Noticing the second voice, Tuchi came out of the back and saw the couple. Though Hinata had been there with Naruto before, that was during the day, and neither had been in such nice clothing. Eyeing Naruto with a mischievous glint in her eyes, she said, "It will be only a few moments. We wouldn't want to keep our favorite customer or his girlfriend waiting." Hinata blushed at the girlfriend comment and looked away and down, attempting to hide it. However, it was to no avail. Naruto caught sight of the blush as well, and sputtering from the comment, he turned to Ayam to respond. "Ayam-chan. It's just our first date, give me a break." Giving a fake sigh at the comment, Ayam turned away for a brief moment, then head to the back room. She returned a minute later with 2 steaming bowls of ramen, only to find the odd couple doing something she would have never dreamed of. Hinata had just reached over and kissed Naruto on the cheek, then whispered in his ear. She couldn't hear it, but Naruto certainly had. "Am I your girlfriend now?" It was uncharacteristically bold of Hinata, but then, she had tackled him nude in a shower stall. Who knew what may happen next? Naruto's thoughts, however, were more focused on that fact that she had just kissed him, if seemingly without spectators, in a public place. Wrapping his mind around the idea, he turned to Hinata, a very obvious blush on his cheeks. However, before he could say a word, Ayame had reached over and put down their ramen in front of them. "Itadakimasu!" Naruto exclaimed with enthusiasm. However, unlike the normal eating fashion of one Sarutobi Uzumaki Naruto, he was eating like a normal person, with manners. It was quite a sight for both of them to see, but they quickly ignored it, Hinata appreciating that he had the capability to eat normally, even if sometimes it seemed beyond him. Finishing their ramen, Naruto began to take Hinata home. They walked in silence, both still a bit uncomfortable from what had happened at the ramen bar. They soon reached the front of the compound. The lights of the main house were out, and the guards weren't there, suggesting that they had either sensed the couple coming and had given them privacy, or were simply switching posts. Either way, it created a perfect situation for Hinata, who decided to use the opportunity. Turning to Naruto, she looked up at him, and a blush formed. "Ano, Naruto, are you okay with being, my boyfriend?" Immediately blushing even further, the young blonde looked down at her. He told her close your eyes obediently. She did so, and soon felt him grasp her around the waist. He leaned in, ever so slowly, and pressed his lips to Hinata's. Feeling his soft lips, she was surprised, but only briefly. She began to kiss back, the heat between them rising. Soon, she felt the tongue running along her lower lip. He was simply begging for entrance, and not willing to deny him, she opened her mouth. Soon, they were locked in a deep kiss, either willing to let go, until they broke away 5 minutes later, gasping for breath. "Does that answer your question?" Smiling, she reached up and whispered in his ear, "Thank you," then kissed him on the cheek and walked inside. She was soon laying on her bed, thinking briefly. It can only get better was her final thought, before drifting into a deep, blissful night of sleep. Just like her, in his bed a few miles away, Naruto smiled at thoughts of Hinata, and fell asleep. Hinata woke up late the next morning, at 8 a.m. She had had an excellent night's sleep, and woke up remembering the soft caress of Naruto's lips. The warm feeling of his tongue brushing against hers. The way he gently stroked her, and then she noticed something sticky between her legs. Blushing crimson, she lifted the covers only to see her essence leaking out through her panties. Never before had she had such a wet dream before. It was as if a dam broke and the water simply rushed out. Quickly leaving the room, she briefly explained that she needed a new pair of sheets to a passing housemaid, and asked her not to tell anyone. Showing a knowing grin, having seen from the shadows what occurred last night, the housemaid nodded, and went about her assignment. Hinata, on the other hand, simply went to the bathroom, showered, returned to her room, dressed in her ninja clothes, and set out for training field 14. Strangely, it seemed to her as if much more time had passed since the team meeting, even if it had only been yesterday. Arriving at the field at 8:55, she noticed her teammates Kiba and Shino were already there. Now they were just waiting for Aliera. There was silence, none of them talked, all expecting their sensei to show up soon. At 9 a.m. sharp, Aliera shined into the middle of the rather barren training field. It was just one gigantic clearing, with a few sparse groves of trees scattered around. It was a circular clearing, a little rough around the edges, and the plant life grew smaller until next to nothing at the center. It was one of the smaller training fields, only a few hundred yards in diameter, and left basically no places to hide. Aliera simply stood in the middle of the clearing, leaning on her sword which was now glowing bright green and seemed to be pulsating chakra. "Glad you all showed up. I figured I would get straight to the point. Here I have 2 bells and a timer. When this timer reaches noon, it will go off. That is how long you have to get these bells from me. The one of you that doesn't get the bell will be tied to a tree, while being forced to watch his or her teammates eat. Also, they'll be sent back to the academy." She finished with a playful tone, waggling her finger at them. "What?" Kiba yelled, far too loudly. If Shino could be bothered to speak, he'd pull a Shikamaru and call Kiba troublesome, but seeing as they were a team, he was not willing to do so. It would be troublesome in itself. "One of you is guaranteed to fail. Now go!" she shouted, dropping the timer on the ground. She vanished. Kiba was the first to move. Trying to catch her scent, he found it led down the path that led back into Konoha. With his dog bouncing on his head, the young Inuzuka performed a few hand seals. Ninpo, Shikaku no Jutsu, for legs technique, and with a burst of speed, he disappeared as well. At this, Hinata turned to try to talk to Shino, but found he had disappeared as well. Shrugging, Hinata followed Kiba's trail, watching his progress with her Byakugan activated. Unbeknownst to them, they were being watched. With Aliera, wow, they were easier to lose than I thought. She was currently speeding through the trees, now traveling just beyond the tree line, parallel to Konoha. With a team made for tracking, I'll have to at least make it a bit difficult. And with this thought, the 20-year-old, brown-haired, beautiful Kunoichi broke up from the tree line, hinged into a civilian, and began to mix with the smells of the street. It had only been 10 minutes, 2 hours, 50 minutes left until her team passed or failed. With Kiba having found the spot where Aliera must have been just a few moments ago, he looked around, confused. The smells of Konoha made it hard to find Aliera specifically. Noticing a minute ago, he decided to stop moving and wait for her. After all, he may be an arrogant Inuzuka, but he could recognize when his skills were not sufficient. With Hinata seeing Kiba stop moving up ahead, she decided to meet up with him. Maybe he had decided to wait for her, and it would be rude to ignore him, even if he was supposed to be competition in this test. He came into view of her normal eyes, and she soon stopped next to him. Kiba-san, I thought you were following her. Narrowing his eyes slightly at the fact that he had lost her trail, he scowled, then repressed it, smiled at Hinata, and spoke to her. I was. She got away, and I can't seem to pick out her scent. There are too many around. Ah, Kiba-san. If you would help me, we could both get a bell. I mean, we're teammates, aren't we? Looking at her with surprise, considering he was supposed to be her opponent in this endeavor, he reluctantly agreed. As long as he got his bell, there wouldn't be any problems. Hinata, sighing with relief at his agreement, reactivated her Byakugan and leapt off into the town to look for their sword-wielding sensei. With Aliera, sheesh, it had been an hour and still no one close. What kind of tracker team is that? I didn't even mask my smell. And that Hyuga kid has passed over me twice now, with the supposed tracker. Judging from her experience, she didn't believe she was being unreasonable. Had Hinata checked every area thoroughly with her Byakugan, she would have found her by now. Still, that Shino kid had her worried. She had found no trace of him until right then. With Shino, I'm glad I placed that Kikai bug on her as soon as she arrived. I figured it would be some kind of test having to do with tracking. From the looks of it, that's what this team is built to do. They'd have to give us a sensei who's good at tracking. I wonder why we got her. Abandoning such thinking, as at that moment it was illogical to think about something currently irrelevant, Shino stayed a mile away from Aliera's location. He figured the best way to get the bells would be to send bugs to distract her, then get a bell for himself with the bugs. But without knowing her abilities, would it be a waste of time? Dwelling on this lack of information, he decided to keep observing until his teammates engaged her, so that he could know something of her abilities. With Kiba and Hinata, Kiba-san, I've found her. She's a few hundred feet to our left, standing by that fruit stand. She's eating an apple. Can you see her? The woman in the red dress? Yes, staring at her, he began to drool, imagining what kind of fun things he could do with a woman like that. Even Akamaru's sweat dropped, as Hinata privately wondered how the 12-year-old had become so perverted. However, he was soon hit in the back of the head, and turning around he found Aliera, with her sword now just under his head, the blade pressed to his throat. Freeze, she said in an icy tone. I told you, I'm not your eye candy. Let's see if you can find me again. And with that, she quickly disappeared. With Shino, serves him right for being so unobservant. Shino muttered under his breath. A bug landed on his hand and crawled around. It was a kind of bug he had never seen before, being slightly larger than an average dragonfly, bright red, and with brown stripes down its body. He was promptly engulfed in a cloud of smoke, as Aliera appeared before him, apparently having hinged into the bug, since it was no longer there. Seems you need to be more observant as well, she stated, then placed the Kikai bug he'd had on her back onto his hand, and shined off, back to the training ground. With Aliera, well, their tracking skills are good, but how are they at fighting? Smirking, the young jounin sheathed her sword, and got into a basic fighter's stance, as the first of the three arrived. Shino, well, I am impressed by your intellect, but it will take more than that to get these bells from me. Not showing any emotion, the Aburame merely nodded, and charged, throwing kunai at the jounin. Dodging, she announced to him first lesson, taijutsu, then, with speed the genin could barely follow, Aliera rushed past him, tripping him with her left foot. Then, spinning on her heel, she used the momentum to hurl a punch into the genin's back, sending him flying off to where she had been, just moments earlier. With surprising agility, Shino righted himself and landed on his feet. Grimacing at the pain, he took up his stance again. Moving through hand seals at an average speed, a clone appeared next to him. Both he and the clone rushed the jounin, taking either side of her. When they got close, Aliera ducked backwards into a bridge, spun on her hands, and kicked both the original and the clone in the face, only for both to explode into clouds of bugs. Quickly pulsing chakra from her sword, the jounin sent a wave of green light off to her right, which the bugs promptly followed, before returning to their master, who charged. Breaking out of her spin, Aliera jumped straight at the genin, only to disappear and reappear behind him, chopping him in the back of the neck and knocking him out cold for at least an hour. There was about half an hour left on the timer. Next, both the Inuzuka and Hyuga arrived, only to see Shino dying from mortal wounds, knives driven into his body and a sword through his back. Standing atop the broken young genin was Aliera, chuckling at the sight of their odd faces. However, Hinata quickly noticed something was wrong, and activating her Byakugan, she saw through the genjutsu. Sending a chakra pulse into Kiba, he broke it as well. So the two of them are working as a team. Well, it's a start. Well? Are you just gonna stand there gawking like idiots, or are you gonna get these bells from me? Stupidly taking the bait, Kiba charged, only to see Aliera making seals. Second lesson, Genjutsu. Kiba was enveloped in a world of cats. Black cats, white cats, orange, brown, blue, purple, cats of all colors, sizes, shapes, hair, or lack thereof, and all of them were playing. Jumping to and fro, playing with balls of twine, kittens and old cats napping, and more. And more. And more. And more. Hinata saw Kiba freeze in place, then let loose a blood-curdling scream, before falling unconscious. What Aliera did to Kiba, she would never know, but she knew that whatever it was, it would probably give him nightmares for a while. Third lesson, Ninjutsu. And with that announcement, Aliera began to make seals. Finishing on the 26th seal, she announced Futon. Pulverizing shield technique forming around Aliera's arms were two large shields made of wind chakra, that looked like a defensive technique, but could also serve as a good offensive technique. Then, she charged, though at a much slower pace than she had used against Shino. Taking her Juken stance, Hinata activated her Byakugan, and didn't see, to her surprise, any of Aliera's Tenketsu. Apparently the shield jutsu she was using had enough chakra in it to block the Tenketsu from sight. Aliera noticed that Hinata had not used a jutsu, and decided to take the offensive. Jumping high into the air, she began to spin at massive speeds, the shields around her turning her into a human buzzsaw. Dodging swiftly out of the way, Hinata watched Aliera touch the ground, only to create a large crater, and bounce up into the air again. Hinata only had the basic academy jutsus, and a few small ones that Naruto had taught her. However, thinking about Naruto, Hinata got an idea. An inventive idea. Creating several seals, the young Hyuga cried out Katan, fireball jutsu, and the small flame rushed at Aliera. Not being able to dodge easily while in the air, Aliera was engulfed by flame which intensified due to the wind chakra in the air around her. Lightly scorched, she broke the technique and lunged forward, hitting the Hyuga girl in the stomach, knocking her unconscious, but not quite setting her on fire. 2 hours later, as if on cue, all 3 members of Team 8 woke up, one of them struggling against the ropes that bound him to a log. That wasn't the last time he looked at the training field. Hinata and Shino just sat up, opening their eyes to see Aliera standing before them, holding 2 boxed lunches. I'll give you one more shot at this. You 2 may eat, and afterwards the 3 of you may come at me again and try to get the bells. You are not allowed to, under any circumstance, feed Kiba. He didn't even get close to a bell. Adding a little killing intent to reinforce her words, she walked away. Once out of range, the 2 began to eat, but then a loud rumbling noise echoed throughout the clearing. Looking at Kiba, Hinata was about to offer him her food, but before she could, Shino reached up and offered him some. Guys, thanks really, but you'll get caught. We can't risk it, Kiba. It is illogical to refuse. I don't sense her presence in the area, and besides, you're useless to us if you're hungry. Picking up a piece of sushi with his chopsticks, Shino placed the food into Kiba's mouth. He quickly chewed and swallowed, only to nearly throw it back up when he felt the killing intent coming from directly in front of them. I said you couldn't feed him. What kind of team are you disobeying orders? Aliera screamed at them, adding about 1/8 of her total killing intent, enough to make Kiba literally wet his pants. Shino responded calmly, if we are to be a team, we have to help each other out, despite consequences. Shaking with fury, Aliera turned to the other 2. Do you agree with this sentiment, she asked, in an icy, stern tone of voice. Both nodded in agreement, Kiba continuing to wet his pants. Okay, you pass. Her suddenly sunny disposition caused all of them to sweat drop. Then, scanning all 3 of them, she spoke in a sage-like voice. There is a monument here in Konoha, dedicated to those who gave their lives for their teams. I have friends, comrades on that monument, and not one of them died from a lack of teamwork. They sacrificed their lives for the sake of others, and for that they are the most highly respected of ninjas. Another jounin once told me, on a mission those who break the rules are scum, but those who abandon their teammates are worse than scum. Remember that. Now go home, and Kiba, you can get yourself down. I'm not going anywhere near your stained pants. Looking over at the Inuzuka with surprise, Hinata broke out laughing, and Shino simply chuckled. Kiba, bright red from embarrassment, just yelled what? She put me in a hell made of cats. Who wouldn't be afraid of a world of cats? Walking away, his team simply laughed. Fortunately for him, Akamaru was used to the smell, and chewed through the ropes, freeing him so that he could return to his house, jumping through the window so as to keep the fact that he wet his pants secret from his mother and sister, who would have never let him hear the end of it. Hell had come, in the form of cats and a psychotic genjutsu. It had been about 4 months since Team 8 had graduated and officially become genin. They had done mostly D-ranked missions and trained, with no C ranks under their belt. All the other genin teams, except for Team 7, had done at least one C-ranked mission. Aliera had told them not long ago, when you feel ready for a C-ranked mission, tell me, and I'll let you try. You've trained hard, I think you've earned it. At this, the Inuzuka boy had jumped up and down, cheering. The D-ranked missions were so boring, and every time they had to get the daimyo's cat, he always thought back to that world of cats. His bladder control improved, but he still couldn't touch the cat without wetting his pants. However, now they could let that cat go about its business. It was time for a C-rank. Entering the Hokage tower, Team 8 saw Naruto heading upstairs to get a mission. Team 8 actually saw Naruto rarely now. He was always doing missions, going with either other rookie or experienced genin teams, or doing missions in two-man teams with other chunins, or just plain training. Not much has changed about him in the last few months. He was now about 5 feet 3 inches, pretty tall for a 12-year-old, and wore a black muscle shirt, with a green vest over it, and black ninja pants, along with black combat boots with metal on the bottom to aid the force of his kicks. Unlike many chunin and jounin, Naruto's vest was full of scrolls. Every slot had a storage scroll in it that contained everything from a month's worth of food, to weapons, to his scroll consisting entirely of modified exploding notes. Stopping, he looked over at them and smiled. "Hey guys, you wouldn't happen to be here for a C rank, would you?" He'd ask them this every time he saw them, every few days. Though Naruto liked doing missions, he could not join them for D-ranked ones because the village needed him to do other, higher-leveled missions. Though he didn't expect them to actually be there for one. "Actually, yes. Would you like to join us?" This invite, though completely unnecessary as he would have found a way to go with them anyway, was nice to hear for once. The thought of Naruto-kun joining them on a mission out of the village sparked Hinata's interest especially. They could finally get away from the village people or her father spying on them without being suspicious. The last few months, Naruto had taken Hinata out on several dates, all ending in about the same way, a deep, long kiss. However, Hinata's father had found out. Though he didn't hate Naruto for being the container of the Kyuubi, he didn't like him for it. He could be tolerated, but Hayashi wanted to know what was going on, and one time caught them nearly kissing. Since then, there had always been a Hyuga main or branch member following them, giving them basically no privacy. Being alone with Naruto, out in the woods, away from prying eyes, everyone was staring at Hinata, her deep shade of red, and the small trickle of blood coming out her nose. Putting a hand on her shoulder, and shaking, Aliera snapped Hinata out of her funk. Looking around, the young Hyuga heiress wiped her nose of the blood, and turning an even deeper shade of red than no one though was possible, she whispered Gomen, "Now that that's out of the way, let's go get the mission. Naruto, come with us as well." Aliera spoke in an authoritative voice, and everyone complied. Approaching the Hokage, Naruto and teammate put in a request for a C-ranked mission. What they were not expecting was for the Hokage to say, "Took you long enough." Startled, the members of teammate looked at Iruka, whilst Naruto and Aliera smiled knowingly. Iruka, seeing the stares, decided to speak up. "Your skill levels are at high genin. I'm willing to bet, with your teamwork, that you could probably beat the other rookie teams. All you lack is experience. That is why we will be sending you on a C-ranked mission. Your duty is to protect a certain individual. Send him in." An old man with a pipe, a straw hat, and plain brown and gray clothing, stepped into the Hokage's office. Looking at teammate and Naruto with indignation, he protested to the Hokage, "This is my protection? They're just a bunch of snot-nosed brats. Especially the brown-haired kid, he looks like he'd wet his pants from fear if a black cat crossed his path." This statement nearly sent Hinata into hysterics, before she realized where she was and held it in. Shino let low a low chuckle. Naruto looked confused as to why the statement was so funny, and Aliera was restraining Kiba, telling him the village won't get paid and he'll fail the mission if he kills their charge. The Hokage then spoke, quieting the room. "This is Tazuna, the bridge builder from the Wave Country. He is building a new bridge there, and needs protection. Your mission is to escort him to Wave and guard him until the bridge is completed. This will be a several-week mission, so pack accordingly." "You heard the Hokage. Tazuna-san, meet us at the East Gate in 2 hours, we will then set out for Wave. The rest of you, report there in 2 hours. Pack a month's worth of supplies. You may go," Aliera stated in her authoritative voice once again. 2 hours later, teammate and Naruto set out from Konoha with Tazuna. It would only take a few days to get to Wave Country by foot and by boat. After traveling for a few hours, they walked past an odd sight. A puddle was on the path, though it hadn't rained for days. All of them nodded to each other, and Aliera slipped to the back of the group. Predictably, as soon as they had passed the puddle, 2 ninjas with gauntlets and chains shot out of the puddle. Wrapping their chains around Aliera, they pulled, hoping to tear her to shreds. Performing a kawarimi, she escaped, but neither of the 2 attackers noticed, and charged the remaining genin and the chunin. Hinata, moving quickly with her jukin, flipped to the side of one and hit him with 2 quick palm thrusts to his right arm, disabling it. Then, with a sweep kick, he fell, and Hinata hit him in the back of the neck, knocking him unconscious. Meanwhile, Shino and Kiba were dealing with the second nin, while Naruto guarded Tazuna. Kiba charged the chunin, going into beast form with his Shikaku technique, and shouting Tsuga, whirling Fong technique, he slammed into the attacker. The force of the attack sent him sprawling back, right into Shino, who delivered a strong kick to his head, knocking him out as well. Clapping was heard around the path, as Aliera appeared from a tree. She shot Tazuna a look that said, "You have some explaining to do," and turned to her team. "Well done. Tie them to the tree, our A and B will find them. Now then, Tazuna, would you care to explain why exactly you have ninjas after you? C ranks only include bandits and thugs. With ninjas after yo, this should be at least a B-ranked mission." Hold on. I had to do it. You see, our country is very poor. Gatu, the businessman, I'm sure you've heard of him, has basically taken control of Wave. He controls all the ports, and since that is our only means of transport, he essentially controls the economy. He's made our country very poor, but that is what I am trying to fix. The bridge I'm building will allow us to make contact with the outside world. This is also why Gatu is after me. I knew he could hire ninjas, but we couldn't afford a higher ranked mission. Please don't abandon us. Thinking it over, Aliera turned to her team. This mission will likely be an A rank. Considering those ninjas failed, Gatu will probably hire more. There will be ninjas on this mission whom only I can fight. If I tell you to stay back, you will do so. Now, knowing that, do you want to continue the mission? Her answer was several eager nods, excluding Naruto, who had a look of concern, but nodded as well. Tazuna-san, we will complete the mission, on one condition. When your village gets the money to pay us, you will pay full price. Nodding happily, Tazuna got up once again, and they set off. A few hours of traveling later, Shino had just thrown a kunai into the bushes, stating he had seen something there. However, upon closer inspection, there was only one white rabbit. Naruto's intellect kicking in, he realized that at this time of year, that kind of rabbit would be brown, so as to camouflage itself. Not taking much more notice, they continued, but only moments later they found themselves walking through a thick cloud of mist. Aliera, sensing chakra in the mist, was on guard. Then, sensing something flying towards them, shouted for all to hear, "Duck!" Reacting quickly, teammate ducked down, and Naruto tackled Tazuna to the ground, just as a gigantic sword flew by, where their heads had been seconds before. The mist quickly cleared, and the sword was to be seen sticking out of a tree, with a man standing upon it. Standing about 6 feet tall, he had short spiky black hair, a kiri headband, and a mask of bandages covering the lower half of his face. He was wearing no shirt, but had camo wristbands on his forearms. He was also wearing the most ridiculous striped blue pants, and matching camo leg warmers. All in all, he looked pretty ridiculous, and Naruto would have laughed if not for the killing intent the man was releasing. Then Aliera's voice cut through the silence. "Momochi Zabuza, demon of the hidden mist. Ah, I see you recognize me. That is quite an honor coming from Pathfinder Aliera." Wait, Pathfinder Aliera? All the genin made double takes, looking at their sensei. She was known around the world as the greatest tracker of all time, and was also known for her blade, a sword which could supposedly steal people's souls with but a scratch. It was a weapon feared even by some of the 7 swordsmen, and would only allow her to use it, as it was bound to her soul as well. Unfortunately for them, Zabuza was not one of the ones who feared the sword. "I am sorry that I must cut this meeting short, but you see, I have to kill that man." Kirigakyu no Jutsu, hidden mist technique. A mist, much thicker than the previous one, surrounded them all very, very quickly. Then, a burst of killing intent assaulted them from all sides. Heart, liver, lungs. By the time he'd finished speaking, the killing intent was so great you could practically hear Shino's bugs shaking in fear. Aliera and Naruto, however, were not affected nearly as badly. Both of them had killed before. Aliera had had worse killing intents directed at her, and now he dies. In a flash of movement, Zabuza was in front of Tazuna. Inside the ring the genin had formed around the bridge builder for his protection. Swinging his sword down, he was intercepted by Aliera, who stuck her sword straight through it, only to have it burst into water. "Mizu Bunshin, water clones," Aliera muttered. Releasing a pulse of green chakra from her sword, the mist cleared. Then, rushing at a surprised Zabuza, the two engaged in a fierce kenjutsu fight. Moving her sword up quickly, she attempted to slash across his chest. Zabuza sidestepped the strike, and spun around in a full circle, very quickly, forcing Aliera to move away. Charging at her, releasing the spin, Zabuza attempted to slash her legs out from under her, but she jumped. However, in doing this, she accidentally let her sword drop down, and it was batted away by the mighty head-cleaving sword. Leaping away, she whispered a chant to herself, making many, many hand seals. "From the great sea of Amorphia, we plunge down into the depths of life. We seek out love, hate, our being, but in the end, we all come back to Amorphia. The plasma of life, we are nothing more than a river, flowing from the great sea." Her voice grew gradually, finally ending at a shout, "Vera! Grant me safety." Kenjutsu, Amorphia Taiga, forbidden technique, life source river. A wave of blue energy shot out from her hands, now forming an O shape, at a speed that broke the sound barrier. Not having time to dodge, Zabuza held up his sword in advance, but screamed from the impact of the energy. After a few moments, the energy stopped, and Aliera knelt down on the ground, completely drained of all her chakra. However, Zabuza was in much worse shape. His arms, leg, torso, all of him had been burned except for what little his sword had covered. Speaking of his sword, Zabuza no longer had one. It had vaporized from the force of the attack, and he had been left with no weapons left. Picking up her sword, Aliera moved to kill him, but was stopped by 2 needles entering Zabuza's neck. A hunter Nin leapt down and picked up the body. Then spoke, "Thank you for dealing with him. I've been waiting a while to kill him. Wait, let me make sure he is dead." Checking the pulse, Aliera felt none, and nodded her head. "I will dispose of the body." Thank you again. She then disappeared in a poof of smoke before Aliera could notice something was wrong. Naruto, however, easily noticed the problem. Turning to Aliera, he was about to voice his concern, when she suddenly collapsed. Picking her up, Naruto turned to the rest of them. Since she is apparently tired from chakra exhaustion, I will be in charge. Tazuna-san, we can stay at your house, correct? Nodding his head in the affirmative, Tazuna looked at Aliera with worry evident on his face. He needed ninja to protect them, but he didn't want any of them to die because of him. Sighing, Naruto noticed the looks of concern from Team 8 and Tazuna, and decided to speak. Don't worry, she will be fine. Now let's get to your home before anything else can happen. Elsewhere, a young woman in a hunter nin mask looked over the burned man before her. Picking up some medical instruments, she went to work on him, both pleased and angry. Pleased that he hadn't been killed by the soul-stealing sword, angry that she was not able to do much as he had commanded her to stay out of the fight unless absolutely necessary. She promised herself, I will kill whoever did this to him. I swear it on my life. It had been only a few hours since they had arrived at Tazuna's house. It was rather large, 2 stories tall, with several guest rooms furnished for the ninjas to use. After setting Aliera down in her room, which she was to share with Hinata, Naruto and the rest of Team 8 went downstairs to eat and talk. Approaching the table, they looked over Tazuna's family once again. Tazuna's daughter, Tsunami, was a very kind and pretty young woman, looked to be in her 20s or 30s, who cooked amazing meals considering what she had to make do with. Inari, Tazuna's grandson, was a resentful child, snorting at the ninjas, but never explaining why. Inari went to his room as soon as the ninjas entered the room. Naruto, his stomach grumbling, was the first to break the silence. Ano, can we get some food soon? Fighting kinda made me hungry. Looking at Naruto with displeasure, Kiba said, what do you mean fighting made you hungry? You haven't done any fighting the past few days. The rest of Team 8 also shot Naruto accusing looks, as if he had been purposefully avoiding fights. However, Naruto was not one to take such looks lightly. If there had been a good time to do so, I would have. However, I wanted to see your teamwork in the last fight was only something Aliera could handle, thinking to himself. Naruto added mentally, actually, I probably could have taken him out permanently, but I felt no need to start another fight with that hunter nin with Aliera in such a state. The bickering continued for quite a while, until Tsunami set down curry in front of them. Digging in, all of them had smiles on their faces. It was, quite simply put, delicious. Thanks, Tsu-chan. Naruto shouted to her, while she blushed slightly, then turned away and scolded him. Don't talk with your mouth full. Of course, the blush did not go unnoticed by one ninja, however she had tried to hide it. Kiba, ever the young lecher, spoke up in his I'm an innocent little boy voice. Tsunami-chan? Can I get seconds? Of course. To protect someone you must be strong, and for that you must eat. Now go on, take more. Tsunami leaned down in front of Kiba, holding out a bowl to allow him to take more curry. However, this also allowed Kiba to get an eyeful down her shirt, which was rather low-cut and hanging off of her. Seeing him leering, with the bit of drool coming out his mouth and the blush across his face, Tsunami realized what had happened. If you want seconds, then here you hentai. Tsunami screamed, pouring hot curry onto the boy's pants. Kiba was up in less than half a second, but before he could move, Hinata shouted Sueton. Cleansing water no jutsu water from their glasses moved up and over, landing on the curry, washing it clean off and possibly saving Kiba's manhood. Thanks, Hinata-san. At the same time, Tsunami stormed out of the room, and Tazuna turned to Kiba with a surprisingly sympathetic smile. She doesn't take kindly to perverts. If I were you, I'd be careful how I acted around her from now on. After pausing for a moment, Tazuna added thoughtfully, she tried to do the same thing to me when she saw me reading Ika Paradise. Now I can only read them when she does the shopping. Hinata and Shino, growing increasingly uncomfortable as the conversation continued, stopped eating. Shino, being more annoyed at the time, said quietly, not everyone likes girls, you know. At that, everyone stopped eating, and stared at the bug boy, who, realizing what he had said, released bugs from himself. In a threatening tone, several octaves deeper than normal, and carrying great authority, decreed, if what I just said ever leaves the room, you will all be devoured by my bugs, got that? All he saw were nods of agreement. They finished eating, and Naruto decided it would soon be time to wake Aliera up and tell all of them of the more important issues. Everyone went about their business, and 2 hours later they all met upstairs in Aliera's room. I feel like hell. What happened? You used a Morphia Taiga, life source river, and passed out from chakra exhaustion shortly afterwards. Aliera rubbed her eyes and sat up. Looking around, she recognized her team and Naruto. What happened to Zabuza? He's still alive. All of Team 8 looked at Naruto as if he was crazy. What do you mean he's alive? You saw what Aliera did to him, and that hunter nin went off to dispose of the body. Aliera even said he was dead. Kiba pointed out. Naruto frowned at Kiba's stupidity, once again. Hunter nins are supposed to dispose of bodies on location, taking only the head for identification, and possibly the weapon, though it wasn't available in this case. Also, the hunter nin used Saban needles. It is very hard to kill someone with Saban, however putting someone in a near-death state is quite possible. Given the burns and his need to replace his weapon, Zabuza will probably be able to attack Tazuna again in about a week. Aliera, do you agree with my assessment? Aliera nodded, then said that jutsu took a lot out of me. I won't be up until I can fix my chakra coils again and restore my chakra. Did you bring me my sword? Nodding in the affirmative, Naruto handed said item to her, but as he did so, Hinata got a confused look. Aliera, I thought only you could wield that sword. How was Naruto able to pick it up? Naruto, having not realized this oddity, also began to wonder how it was possible. Aliera, sensing the building confusion in the room, responded before anyone could procure meaningless guesses. Simple, it allows me and the one I choose to wield it next to touch it. At this, Naruto's eyes went wide. You mean I'm going to be the next one to wield ki? Will you show me how? When? What else can it do? Can you start teaching me now? Naruto started bouncing up and down with excitement, a rare act for him since he had not done any such things since his second year as GTN. Aliera sighed. Naruto, I'll start teaching you soon, but you don't get ki until you're Hokage. Looking down in defeat, Naruto returned to the matter at hand. So wait, Aliera, will you be up in time? No, not likely, but we can't return to Konoha in the condition I'm in, nor any of you travel back alone. You could be targeted by Gato. We're just going to have to stay here. Naruto, train them, and train yourself. In a week, you must be able to defeat Zabuza. All of them looked shocked, but quickly resigned to their fate. Naruto, seeing their downtrodden looks, decided to distract them. We can do this. Come on, all of you, we have to train. In the woods, 15 minutes later, speaking in an authoritative voice, Naruto addressed Team 8. Now I know you are all strong, and our teamwork is good. I won't be able to train you in much, since I have to train myself, but I suggest you work on your family jutsus and work your asses off. If you need a sparring partner, come find me. I will be with Tazuna-san at the bridge and can make some kage bunshin. Also here, Naruto reached into one of his scroll holders, and pulling out a tiny scroll. Opening it, he unsealed a very large scroll. Opening that scroll, he looked it over, then turned to the team. Look at this. They complied, and saw the scroll was labeled, in order, with the kanji for basic, advanced, and master. This scroll contained many chakra control techniques, elemental jutsus, and theories that should help you master them. To unlock the scrolls, push some chakra into it. Smaller scrolls will pop out, giving you categories to choose from. Unseal the items in those, and it will give you information. To reseal them, make these 3 seals, showing them the seals. And put chakra into the scroll, and put it into the appropriate slot. Now this is my personal library. Don't damage anything. I suggest you only use the basic techniques. You won't master anything else in such a short time. Moving out of lecture mode, Naruto continued. Now, in order to use your time efficiently, I want you all to find out your chakra affinity. Kiba, you already know yours, so you can get started. Shino, come here and push some chakra into this. Holding up a card, he handed it to the bug user. Channeling some chakra into the card, it suddenly crumbled. Naruto, quite surprised by this revelation, exclaimed, a lightning type now, that's unusual. I'm not sure how exactly this works, Shino. Are you bugs an extension of your chakra, or will you be turned into a human bug zapper? Curious and annoyed at Naruto's apparent interest in his clan, Shino elaborated. My chakra and my bugs can be either separate or joined. If they were always joined, what kind of ninja would I be? I would need bugs to do a henge. This being the loudest all of them had ever heard Shino speak, and the longest he'd ever talked for, the group was stunned. Naruto, feeling a bit nervous around the boy, told him he could go to work. However, not long afterwards, Naruto heard Kiba mutter maybe coming out of the closet loosen him up a bit. Needless to say, that night Kiba would wake up with many bugs in his sleeping bag. Hina-chan, see me. Shyly walking over, happy once again to be relatively alone with Naruto, she looked both ways until she was sure both Kiba and Shino were busy. Then, she calmly reached up and enveloped Naruto's lips in a long, hard kiss. Lapping against his bottom lip, asking for entrance, they opened their mouths. Pressing herself to him, Naruto wrapped his arms around her, pulling her tightly against himself. Closing their eyes, they continued. A few minutes later, they broke away from each other, only to hear the lack of training going on. Looking around, they saw Kiba with his jaw on the ground, and Shino with his nose in his jacket, scowling. This wasn't his idea of a show. Naruto was the first to break the silence again. What, you've never seen 2 people kiss before? Naruto asked incredulously. Kiba simply snorted, and looked back to his scroll. Naruto held out a card to Hinata, who channeled some chakra into it. The card became wet, which was really no surprise since she had already learned a few water jutsus pretty easily. Okay, you all know your affinities. Now get to work. Poofing away before they could ask any more questions, Naruto left his personal library behind and accompanied Tazuna to the bridge. 4 days later, 1,000 Narutos could be seen in an open field early in the morning not far from a bridge, training on a very odd technique. However, suddenly, all but one disappeared. The single remaining clone picked up a leaf, which promptly disappeared from sight entirely, as if it had never been there. Not far away, at a bridge, there could be heard a boy, no older than 13, yelling something about goddamned frickin' headaches. Not far away from where the clones had been, a boy surrounded by bugs lit himself with some kind of burst of light. A boy with a dog could be seen cutting up the ground by pointing his hands at it, and a girl was nowhere to be found. Deep in the forest, Hinata woke up in the middle of a small clearing, only to look over and see a girl picking herbs. Lifting herself up, Hinata turned to the stranger and addressed her in a weak voice. "Excuse me? What are you doing?" "Picking herbs to help a friend," she stated simply. She had long black hair and wore a pink casual kimono, well, as casual as a kimono gets. Hinata, though, no surprise there. "What were you doing out here? You look pretty beat up." Shyly, Hinata responded. "I was training. I need to get stronger." "Why?" Pondering the question briefly, Hinata said, "To protect the one I love." The black-haired girl looked at Hinata with surprise, then smiled. "That's good. If you protect those precious to you, you will grow strong. Never forget that." The girl then began to walk away, but was stopped by a voice. "Wait, what's your name?" "Haku." And then, the black-haired girl disappeared. Shrugging, Hinata turned back to her training. Jogging to a nearby stream, she began forming hand seals. 2 days later, nighttime, Aliera awoke to see the same ceiling she had the past few days. She still hadn't regained the energy needed to be able to fight. She could only pray she'd be fine by morning. At the same time, Naruto and Hinata entered the house. Everyone else was asleep, or so they thought. Having not had any free time to themselves, and due to Kiba and Shino wandering around in their training, they had not found any time to be together. Sneaking up the stairs, they both entered the boys' room, right next to the girls. Entering quietly, Naruto and Hinata locked the door behind them. "Are you sure this is okay, Naruto? I mean, what if Kiba or Shino come back? What if Aliera wakes up? It will be fine. Plus, I want to spend some time alone with my Hina-chan." Over the past few months, the two had grown close. Every free day they got, they spent together. Naruto just couldn't stand being watched over by a Hyuga whenever he was with her, and for the first time in a while, they were completely alone. Pushing 2 futons next to each other, they laid down and embraced each other. "Hinata, there is something I want to tell you. I've been thinking about this a lot, and I hope you understand." Hinata's full attention was now on Naruto. "I haven't had all that many precious people in my life, I should say. I overheard that girl talking to you. I've been keeping watch on all of you the past few days, and I want to say..." He was cut off by Hinata's expression. She was now blushing crimson. "Did he hear me? Did he hear me say that I... Hinata," he whispered softly. "I love you." Then, leaning in, he kissed her. However, this kiss was different for the both of them. The others had been amazing, but compared to this was heaven on earth. They moved closer to each other, Hinata pressing herself against his body completely, wrapping one leg around his. They lay there, embracing, kissing for what seemed to them to be eternity. The softness of their lips pressing against each other, the warmth of the tongue, the connection, the spark, the lust, the attraction, the love between them. All rolled into one heavenly experience. Hinata was in a state of absolute bliss, but she wanted more. She broke away and lifted up Naruto's shirt to his great surprise. "Hinata-chan? What are you doing?" he moaned softly, as his shirt was fully removed, and she traced her fingers up and down his toned, tan body. "I just wanted to be closer to you." She slowly began removing her coat, revealing the tight shirt underneath. Pressing still closer, she took his hand and put it to her chest. "Hinata, it's okay. Just for now I want to be close to you, just once, in case we die tomorrow." Suddenly, Naruto became stern. "Hinata, I promise you, we will not die tomorrow. I will protect you with my life, and I promise I won't die either. It will be fine, we can handle it together." Though Naruto hadn't known it, Hinata had been nervous about what could happen tomorrow. Sure, Naruto was strong, but having checked up on Aliera, she knew he'd be facing Zabuza alone. "Do you promise?" "I promise." And like that, they fell asleep in each other's arms. Outside the room, I hear breathing inside the room, and Naruto and Hinata couldn't be anywhere else. Kiba told Shino. "Whatever. Kiba, just because they are in a locked room together doesn't mean they did it. Now let's just go sleep on a couch or something. We clearly aren't getting in there, and I don't trust you not to fondle Aliera once I fall asleep." Harsh dude, harsh. It was the morning that Team 8 and Naruto had planned to escort Tazuna to the bridge, the day the bridge would be completed, and thus, the day Zabuza would attack. Early that morning, Aliera was deemed incapacitated, due to a needle to the neck putting her in a near-death state. Flashback no jutsu. "Aliera ne-chan?" Naruto called, knocking on the door. "Aliera?" There was still no response. "Ne-chan, we have to go soon, get up." Walking into the room, he took no more than 2 seconds to get by Aliera's side and check her pulse. She was alive, but just barely. Her breathing was shallow and she was pale as a ghost. A small saban needle, very much like the ones that killed Zabuza, stuck out from her neck. Pulling it out quickly, Naruto used some of his chakra to heal the wound and stabilize her. However, with what little medical knowledge he knew, that was the most he could manage. Walking out of the room, he placed a sign on the door that said "Do not disturb" and moved off to his room to get ready. End flashback. Hinata, Shino, Kiba. Aliera is not fit to fight yet, we must do this alone. I don't want any of you to engage Zabuza. He will likely have that hunter Nin with him. Do not be fooled, he or she is a fake. Your job will be to defeat the Nin and defend Tazuna. I'll deal with Zabuza. Nodding, they looked at Naruto shakily, wondering what he could ever hope to do against such a foe, but kept silent. This was not the time to question him. Setting off with Tazuna, they walked to the bridge. Arriving there half an hour later, they looked around. It was a massacre. All of Tazuna's workers had been utterly maimed by a sword that, from the wounds, appeared to have a serrated edge. Tazuna's expression fell as he looked at the slaughter of those who had worked for him. Many friends were dead here. I swear on my life that I will finish the bridge, so that your sacrifice will not be in vain. We must look for survivors. Let's go. Wait, where's Kiba? The group looked around, but the Inuzuka was nowhere to be found. Elsewhere. I can't believe I forgot my equipment pouch. Stupid Kiba. Stupid. Looking around, the young Inuzuka saw something which caught his eye. There were scratch marks, likely from a sword, marking the path. They were headed in the direction of Tazuna's house. Crap, gotta hurry. With that, he quickened his pace, and soon arrived to see a sight he'd never wanted to see. Earlier, Inari looked to where his mother was being held. He had never felt so helpless in his entire life. But he thought back to what he had been told by that wet dog kid earlier. Flashback. No jutsu, you stupid mutt. No matter how hard you try, you cannot beat Gata's men. The weak lose against the strong, just like my father. He was a great man. He tried to protect the village with his own hands, but he couldn't stand up to them. What make you think you can? I lost my father, a great man of wave. How could a foreign happy-go-lucky douche like you help? You'll just die. They were in his room, but Inari soon broke into tears and started to leave. However, he felt a hand on his shoulder, stopping him. Turning around, he saw the boy's face was surprisingly sympathetic. I have never met my father. I'm the clan screw-up. I'm not like Naruto or Aliera, and I'm willing to admit I'm not as strong, but I keep trying. A screw-up is only a screw-up if he decides to stay one. I am going to work hard. I am going to be the greatest Inuzuka ever, a clan head, even without my father. You know why? Because running away from problems isn't my thing. I'm not gonna cry and run away from all this. If I protect those close to me, those precious to be with these two arms, I will be strong, and you, if you stop running away, you will be strong too. Like deja vu, Inari was struck by this boy's similarity to his father. They had said the same thing with these two arms. Thank you, Kiba-san. I won't run away anymore. The boy's voice was cracking, and Kiba decided it was time to leave. Closing the door behind him, he listened, but was surprised when he didn't hear crying. Maybe he had gotten through to him. End flashback. Let go of my MOM, Inari. Tsunami was frantically trying to get away, to shield her son, as she knew what would happen next. One of the two samurai that had invaded her home looked over to see the young boy. What's this? I suppose you think you're tough, huh? Tell you what, come at me. We'll see what's tougher, your skin or my sword. Wait! Tsunami yelled, attempting to get his attention. Leave him alone. You only need me. Looking amused, the samurai holding her whispered into her ear, yeah, but where would be the fun in that? I'll bite my tongue and choke on my own blood to death if dare touch him. Her harsh tone of voice was rewarded with a hard slap to the face, but after that they simply began dragging her away. Ka-san, Inari, run! They won't hurt you, just save yourself. Standing there, helpless, Inari watched his mom get dragged away. Picking up a large bucket, the young boy prepared himself for what he had to do. This was the scene Kiba saw. Tsunami being dragged away, and Inari emerging from the house with a large steel bucket. Ah man, gotta do something fast. They don't look like ninja, one solid attack should do it. Jumping down from his branch, he made sure they hadn't seen him, and said quietly, Jujin Bunshin no Jutsu. Beast clone technique. Akamaru and Kiba, now a pair of beastly-looking Kibas, both began making seals. Shikaku no Jutsu, for legs technique. Suddenly, the power of the two increased by a lot. Making a few final seals, they both whispered /bark Doton, rippling earth no Jutsu. The samurai felt the ground shaking beneath them, an odd occurrence since there had never been earthquakes in wave country. Hearing a loud growl from in front of them, they both looked ahead, and in the blink of an eye, two identical ninjas blurred in front of them and launched their kicks. Rubbing weakly at the spot where they had been hit, they looked at the Kibas, raising their swords. You're gonna pay for that, you punk. We're Gata's men, and no stupid 12-year-old is gonna beat us, even if you are a ninja. Now, prepare to die. Watching in horror, Inari thought Kiba was about to die, and was about to dive in the way when something odd happened. Mid-swing, both samurai were struck by a wave of dirt, plowing them off into the water which surrounded Tazuna's house. Looking behind Kiba, Inari saw a gigantic swath of destruction, 5 feet wide, about 6 inches deep in the middle, curving upwards to meet the ground. The swath stretched back 200 feet to a tree at the edge of the woods. All that dirt had just struck the two samurai, leaving them bound with their heads just above water, in 2 gigantic pillars of mud. Kiba merely thought smugly, won't master an advanced jutsu that quickly, my ass. Turning back to normal, Kiba rushed up the stairs, grabbed his equipment pouch, downed a soldier pill, and rushed outside. As he moved past, he said to Inari, "Good work. Now I gotta go help at the bridge, they'll need me to bail them out of course." Inari watched as the visage of his new hero vanished into the woods. With resolve, he thought to himself, "This is the village's last chance to beat Gato, I gotta go get help. With his gang, I'll need the whole village." And the young boy set off, to begin rounding up the resistance. Back at the bridge, "Zabuza, today, you will pay for what you did to Aliera." Smirking, Zabuza jabbed a thumb in the direction of the hunter and spoke, "That was my tool here." "Helpful woman, isn't she?" Spitting in disgust, Naruto spoke. "Hinata, Shino, Tazuna, stay back. You too, guard Tazuna-san. I see my fight is only a mere chunin then. Well, after I kill you, I'll kill the old man. Now, prepare to meet my sword." Charging forward, Zabuza revealed his new sword. It had a serrated blade that looked like it was made of teeth, and had a blue blade. The other side of the blade was sharpened. The sword looked like it was more for cutting than stabbing. The hilt was silver, the handle red. It was about the same side as his head-chopping cleaver. Engraved on the side was the word Serioli. Forming seals, Naruto shouted Katan, flame staff, and summoned a staff very much like Sarutobi's. It being the only weapon he was proficient in, other than kunai and shuriken, the Kenjutsu battle began. On the other side of the bridge, the tension was building. "I am Haku. I figured I would tell you the name of your killer so you may die with peace of mind. Now let's begin." Pulling out several saban needles, she threw them at Hinata, Shino, and Tazuna. Using her Byakugan, Hinata deflected all the ones aimed at her and Tazuna, and Shino used bugs to block the ones aimed at him. "Hinata, guard Tazuna, I will deal with her." "Hi. Tazuna, get behind me." Complying, he moved so that she could guard him easily, and they began watching the fight. With Shino and Haku protecting the girl, Well, such chivalry will lead to your death. You will die. Taking out several saban needles, she hurled them, but they were once again blocked by the bug swarm. Deciding to use a different tactic, Haku performed several hand seals and shouted Hyuten, 1,000 needles no jutsu. At least 100 needles made of ice surrounded Shino, firing from all sides. However, when they struck, he burst into a cloud of bugs. A clone? Then where'd he go? Looking around, Haku caught sight of a fist heading towards her. Dodging out of the way, she threw several needles at him, though they were again deflected by bugs. Forming seals, the bug boy whispered to himself, "Right on. Zap bug no jutsu." All at once, Shino's bugs were enveloped in a blue light. Landing on Haku, she immediately felt her chakra being sucked away. However, it did not go very far. Being turned into lightning, it was being fed back into her, the lightning zapping her chakra pathways. Had it continued for much longer, she would have been paralyzed, possibly for life. Jumping away from the swarm, Haku formed more seals. For Zabuza, she whispered, "Hyuten, demonic ice mirrors technique." Shino was quickly trapped within about a dozen mirrors, all around him. Facing him, on every mirror, was Haku. "Shit, I can't get her with my bugs while she's in there, and that last jutsu was most of my chakra. Kiba, get here soon." With Hinata, "He's getting weaker." Shino, "Hold on, I can't abandon my post, but I'm sure Naruto or Kiba will help soon." With Naruto, Zabuza was simply laughing. They had been in a fierce Kenjutsu fight for several minutes now. Due to the heat caused by Naruto's staff, any mist Zabuza attempted to produce was quickly wiped away. The staff did not seem to be wearing down, meaning the kid either had massive chakra stores or amazing control, not that he knew Naruto had both. However, even with the staff, Naruto was slowly getting more and more cuts. Though some were already healing, it was clearly a losing battle. However, this was not why Zabuza was laughing. Looking down the bridge a few hundred feet, he saw Haku create the mirrors. "What's so funny?" Naruto growled at the man who was still laughing his ass off. "Your friends are about to die. Haku used the mirrors, they stand no chance. Do not underestimate them. Your tool seems to be having a hard time too." "You mean Haku?" Haku was just playing with him. With her ice bloodline, she is Jounin level. Heck, on a good day she may even beat me. Naruto's eyes widened. He knew that it took great skill to use the needles like she had, but Jounin level? "I have to finish this fight quick. Let's take this up a notch, shall we?" The man stopped laughing. Then grinned maliciously. "If you wish for your death, I will be happy to grant it." Charging once again, Naruto only had a moment to block, before leaping backwards and starting hand seals. Raiton, lightning staff, a rod made of lightning, the same length as the flame staff, formed in Naruto's left hand. The flame staff in his right, Naruto took his stance, his left in front, wrist bent, holding the staff parallel to the ground and out in front of him, his right hand over his head, spinning the flames like a helicopter blade. "Come!" Zabuza, not one to turn down such a challenge, charged, swinging like a man. The Kenjutsu fight continued. With Shino, "There is no logical way out of this. I am going to die here." Needles covered his body. He had more than 80 stuck in various parts of his body. Collapsing to the ground, he fell unconscious. "Well, now, I guess I should finish him off." Spinning a needle, Haku was about to slash Shino's throat when a blast of air came from her left. Blown to the side, she moved herself into a mirror, just in time to avoid a slash from a rather ferocious-looking boy. Shino, I will protect you, just don't hit on me later. If Shino was conscious, he'd have hit him for that. However, just because Shino wasn't conscious didn't mean his bugs weren't. There would be payback if they survived. Hey, creepy hunter-neen lady. My name is Haku, I am not creepy, and stop eyeballing me or I will be forced to neuter your corpse. Cringing at the thought, he took a moment, then became serious. I will protect him, and you will lose here. Prepare yourself. Jujin Bun Shingatsuga, becoming two whirling missiles, Kiba and Akamaru, who now looked like Kiba, began striking the mirrors until it became apparent they weren't doing much. The mirrors just kept repairing themselves. Now you will die as well. Releasing 100 ice needles from the mirrors, Kiba was struck in many places. However, he managed to save his manhood. Akamaru looked like a pincushion and dropped the bunshin, becoming the small white dog he was. Taking 2 soldier pills out of his equipment bag, Kiba fed one to Akamaru and one to himself, and prepared for a last attempt. I will protect him, Kiba gasped. He knew this next attempt may very well kill him, but he was willing to take the chance. Mother, Hannah, I'm sorry, but it must be done. This better work. It's all I have left. I shouldn't have spent so much chakra fighting those samurai working through the hand seals, all 40 of them. Haku did not simply wait. By the time he'd finished the seals, Kiba had 20 more needles in his body. He'd managed to dodge enough while making the seals to avoid getting hit in vital spots and without losing concentration. Akamaru, now! A loud growl erupted from the small dog, sounding like a roar created from sound. This had better frickin' work. Kinjutsu, Beast Release. A gigantic burst of wind launched into the wave of sound, multiplying its power 1,000-fold. The sound/wind wave took the shape of a wolf, and shattered all the mirrors, blowing Haku away, skidding on the ground nearly 200 feet, landing near Naruto and Zabuza's fight. Kiba promptly passed out. With Naruto, the Kenjutsu fight had continued for several minutes, until an attack which sounded like a sonic boom sent a woman flying towards them. Looking at the body, Zabuza bounded away and stopped it from moving. Seeing Haku, body covered in deep gashes from head to toe, with the mask on her face broken, Zabuza howled in anger. If you take away my daughter, I'll take away your girl. Forming hand seals before Naruto could react, Zabuza shouted in fury, Suetun, Water Dragon no Jutsu. A dragon made of water from beneath the bridge appeared, and shot at Hinata at such a speed she couldn't possibly dodge. Hit by the attack, she was immediately knocked unconscious. Zabuza became a blur, swinging his sword around to hit both Tazuna and Hinata, when he suddenly froze in place. An aura of pure unbridled hatred and killing intent were aimed directly at him, so powerful it seemed unnatural. You shall never, ever touch Hinata-chan again. Prepare to die. Naruto looked quite different. He glowed with a red aura of chakra, surging around him, destroying whatever it whipped into. His hands had grown out, and he now had claws clearly visible now that his staffs had disappeared. However, the most terrifying aspect of Naruto was his eyes. Naruto's eyes had changed from their once beautiful cerulean blue. They were now green and with wide black slits in the middle, the kanji for seal in the center, looking as if it was burned in with fire. Naruto's mind flooded with his knowledge. Seals flashed before his eyes, before settling upon one, a gravity seal. In an instant the seal was placed on Zabuza, as if projected onto him. It activated, and he grew heavier and heavier still. Soon, he was crushed to the bridge, the force of the seal starting to crush his bones. Then, Naruto began forming seals. Walking slowly up to the struggling Zabuza, Naruto took one look at his hand. A seal, more complex than anything the Yondaime had created, except maybe those needed for Hiraishin, appeared on Naruto's hand. You will never touch her again, in this life or the next. Fujinjutsu, Disintegration Seal. Ramming his hand towards Zabuza, Naruto was awed, as his hand came in contact with Haku, who had regained consciousness, and leapt in front of Zabuza. However, in that moment, all of Naruto's chakra was dispelled into the jutsu, and Haku turned to dust. The Kyuubi chakra was gone, and Naruto's eyes returned to normal. Fortunately, the only ones still conscious to see it were one immovable Zabuza, one terrified Tazuna, and a new presence. Zabuza, I see you failed once again. Well, at least after I kill you all, I'll get the bounty for your head. Too bad the cowardly woman who was with you left. I bet she would have been entertaining. The voice was followed by the sounds of many feet. Gat and Naruto muttered. The army of thugs would be difficult to deal with in his condition. You bastard! Zabuza gasped out. Naruto deactivated the seal, and Zabuza, with his bones half destroyed, stood up. What was your name? Zabuza inquired to the blonde-haired ninja. Uzumaki Naruto. You are strong, but my business is no longer with you. Please, put Haku's ashes into my grave with me, and take my sword. I cannot wield it now, but it is well made. Make sure it gets an owner. Kunai. Naruto tossed the kunai to Zabuza, who turned to Gatu. I'll show you a demon! He roared. Though Naruto had killed Haku, he had done so with honor, and she fulfilled her wish to protect Zabuza with her life. She had saved him. However, Gato had just insulted her for that, he would die. Gato, seeing the ninja stand once again, with an evil glint in his eye, raced to the back of his army of thugs. However, this did not stop Zabuza. Racing through the ranks, Zabuza killed every single person in his way, cutting a swath of destruction to Gato. With several spears, pikes, swords, and other weapons protruding from his back, Zabuza stumbled forward and killed Gato, throwing his corpse off the bridge. Then, seeing as he had no chakra left and could barely move his arms anymore, Zabuza shot Naruto one last look, then collapsed, dying no more than a few seconds later. Just like a week ago, heart, lungs, liver, all of his vital points had been, but he fought to the very end. One of the thugs spoke up suddenly. Hey, he was our free pass. Let's just kill this stupid ninja and raid the town. If he's in league with the guy that killed our money clip, he may as well die. His pretty little blue-haired friend over there would make for some good entertainment. She's a ninja, bet she could go on for hours. A larger thug spoke up. However, before Naruto could become enraged, an arrow landed in front of the group. Turning around, they saw the entire village of people all holding weapons. If you even touch any of those ninja, or the village, you will have us to deal with, said a small boy. A chorus of cheers followed his statement. The thugs, looking nervous, decided perhaps attacking a force twice their size wouldn't be a smart idea. Running for the hills, they scattered, and the people cheered. A few days later, Aliera, Kiba, Hinata, Shino, and Naruto stood at the front of the bridge, now completed. Tazuna was on a podium in front of them, praising them for their skills and for their help, how they came to their aid even when they didn't have to. Tazuna paused in his speech, remembering the conversation he'd had with Naruto the night after the battle at the bridge. Flashback no jutsu. Tazuna-san, what you saw was a sealing jutsu that was meant only to destroy parts of a body. I lost control, and I swore to myself never to use that jutsu again unless absolutely necessary. You cannot tell anyone what you saw though. That seal is too powerful to be let alone, and you simply having seen it would cause you and perhaps your family to get kidnapped for information. Put simply, tell no one what you saw. What about your eyes? I mean, that's not a common occurrence either, is it? What do you mean my eyes? What happened? They became green and slit, with the kanji for seal in the middle of the slits in red. I've never seen eyes like those before. That is not for you to know. Sighing, Tazuna knew he wouldn't get any more information from the boy on what exactly had happened. I won't tell a soul. I expect nothing less. Flashback end. Returning his attention to the crowd, he resumed his speech after just a few moments. Finishing shortly afterwards, the 5 ninja crossed the bridge and began their journey back to Konoha. Wait a minute, Inari piped up. We never got to name the bridge. Thinking for a moment, Tazuna turned to Inari. Remember that brown-haired boy? I think he had more to do with this success than anyone. I say we name this the Great Kiba Bridge in honor of the boy who inspired this town to join together and fight back, the boy with the bravery of a man, intelligence, kindness. The crowd cheered, and the next day it was engraved in stone above the bridge for all to see. After crossing the bridge, I'm tired, I'm hungry, my feet hurt, and I keep dreaming of cats. When are we getting home? Kiba whined. It was going to be a long journey home. Returning from their trip to Wave had been fortunately uneventful. It had taken 3 days to get back, since Aliera could only walk. Team 8 and Naruto decided to take her to the hospital. After all, it normally didn't take this long to restore one's chakra reserves. Checking her in, Aliera was taken up to room 309. Kiba and Shino said their goodbyes and went off to unpack and continue the day. It had only been 2 p.m. when they got back, a perfect day to relax since all missions they could do would be taken by then anyway, and they had no sensei to do them with. Naruto, on the other hand, decided to follow Aliera up to the room. Walking hand in hand with Hinata laying her down in the bed, he leaned over in front of Aliera. You had me worried, Nei-chan. Naruto-chan, I can take care of myself. However, that needle did do a number on me. I don't think I can move much anymore. Aliera said with a smile tugging at her lips. Well, don't worry me now, and you better be up soon, else your team is gonna get bored. Nodding in agreement, Aliera laid down to rest, but after 5 minutes determined she couldn't sleep. Opening her eyes again, she sat herself up, only to see Naruto still there, watching her. What are you still doing here? Wanted to make sure you got to sleep okay, but it looks like that isn't going to happen. The nurse was curious as to why your chakra wasn't back yet as well. She thinks there must have been some kind of poison on it that damaged your chakra coils. They called the Hokage to see what he thought. Ah, I see. Well then, we may have a while to wait, he must have a lot to do. Turning to Hinata, she called her over. The 3 then engaged in small talk, until Naruto gained a thoughtful look on his face, as if suddenly remembering something. Aliera, can I ask you something? Sure. What do you need? Aliera, do you know who my parents were? The lack of the honorific showed her he was now being serious, so she looked at him thoughtfully for a moment. Wondering what had brought on such a question, she responded. No, Naruto. I don't. I think the only person in the village who could possibly know where you came from would be the Hokage. Why did you want to know? As if on cue, the Hokage walked into the room with Hyuga Niji at his side. Naruto had been around Hinata enough to know her cousin, An arrogant kid who looked upon the world as if it was driven by some otherworldly force known as fate. He had a weird seal on his head, like most other branch members, which kept him in line with the main family. However, this was one of the very things Naruto hated most, the idea of slavery and that someone is bound to fate, as if they can't rebel. Wearing a white yukata, and with long hair, he looked very feminine. If not for how he looked when glaring, his default expression, he may have actually looked hot to the female populace. Remembering their first time meeting each other, Naruto lost himself in thought. Flashback no jutsu, 2 months ago, Hinata and Naruto could be found sitting by a lake near Training Ground 7, their hands feeling each other's, and looking out over the clear blue water. On some days, this water could be a raging whirlpool due to a jutsu, on others it could be boiling hot, freezing cold, pleasant, and even calm. The pleasant calm waters of that day left Hinata and Naruto content to just be with each other, and watch. However, breaking the calm, Naruto turned to Hinata. "Hey Hinata, I don't know why this never occurred to me before, but just who is that guy who's always watching us?" Interrupted from the shadows, a man walked out. His veins around his eyes were bulging, then quickly stopped. "I am Hyuga Niji, her cousin and prodigy of the main branch. A bit arrogant, aren't you? You aren't one to be talking. I've heard some things about your missions, and your headstrong tendencies. Your dream, though, that is the one thing that interests me. You have no bloodline, no particular talent, yet you are trying to be Hokage. It is futile, you realize. Fate decides the Hokages." "Fate? What does fate have to do with anything? I work myself to be strong, and I choose my own fate. Fate is determined at birth. My father's fate was decided the second his twin brother left the womb first, and he died for it. You cannot escape your fate, and as an orphan you have no chance." The Yondaime was an orphan. He had no family, and neither do I, yet that does not mean I can't change my own path. If you believe so much in fate, then I will have to change that, won't I? You cannot change mine any more than you can change your own, you bastard. The main branch oppress us, yet you openly help them? They make us slaves, but you have fun with them. Tell me, what's it like to be free?" His voice was now full of malice. "I haven't lived a free day in my life, but this fool lives oblivious. If he understands, perhaps he will rethink this thing with Hinata, and I won't have to watch their damned asses anymore. I may not know your particular hardships, but I know your pain. You know nothing." Niji then slipped back into the darkness, all traces of him disappearing. Naruto couldn't doubt this Niji was a prodigious ninja. And flashback, Niji scowled at the man who knew nothing of pain. Taken in by the Hokage and trained, he couldn't know pain. He had family, he had love, even without parents, the boy was special. "Hinata, I am here to bring you back to the manor. Your father wishes to speak with you." The Hokage quickly turned to the two of them, halting their path. "Hold on. Niji, we are having trouble figuring out what happened to Aliera. Examine her." Complying, Niji activated his Byakugan. Looking at Aliera, he saw that her coils had been damaged in several places, with a foreign chakra disrupting flow in the chest. No wonder she was bedridden, any non-ninja would have died instantly. There is a foreign chakra disrupting her flow through her chest and right arm, as well as damage in those spots and in her neck. The pathways appear not to be able to reconstruct themselves around the foreign chakra, but it is dissipating. By my estimate, the foreign chakra will dissipate in about 2 weeks' time, and she should then begin healing. Niji then deactivated his Byakugan and left the room with Hinata, closing the door behind them. The Hokage addressed Aliera. "You are going to be off active duty and in here the next few weeks. If all is as the Byakugan saw, then you should be fine in about a month. In the meantime, who would you like to serve as your replacement?" "Naruto." The blonde Chunin looked at her in surprise. Sure, he knew everyone on her team, but he wasn't a jounin. The Hokage was surprised as well, but having known Naruto, knew why she had made that decision. "Listen, Aliera, I know he is a good friend to you, and he's talented, but he's no jounin. He wouldn't be leading them on anything more than D ranks, or C ranks within Fire Country. I thought you wanted your team to get experience?" "Yes, and he is plenty capable of leading a team by himself. He defeated Momochi Zabuza by himself." "Surely." Aliera was cut off by the sound of Naruto clearing his throat. "I'm afraid that isn't exactly true. I have something to ask you, Ajizan." A short pause followed, until Naruto continued. "I don't believe I defeated Zabuza myself. I had the help of my tenant." Both Aliera and the Hokage's eyes widened. Naruto quickly went through some hand seals, then put a silencing barrier around the room. Before either member of his audience could speak again, Naruto continued in a slightly softer, darker voice unbefitting of the boy. "That battle is scattered in my mind. I remember I engaged Zabuza in a kenjutsu fight with my elemental staffs. I remember his ally Haku landing near us because of some jutsu Kiba must have used, then I remember Zabuza attacking Hinata. After that, I think I must have passed out, but I opened my eyes and was in a large sewer. It was glowing red at the end of it, and within a giant cage was Giant Fox. We talked, and he pushed some kind of red chakra through the bars at me, and I remember the pain enveloping my body as it surrounded me, and then I blacked out. Tazuna explained some of it to me later, but other than using my disintegration seal, I don't remember anything until I released the gravity seal I'd somehow placed on him. Aliera held a shocked look, while the Hokage merely looked speculatively at the young boy. So he knows. Then, as if deciding something, he nodded to himself, and began speaking. Tell me of your conversation with it. Flashback no jutsu. If you take away my daughter, I'll take away your girl. Forming hand seals before Naruto could react, Zabuza shouted in fury Suetun. Water dragon no jutsu. Naruto saw the dragon hit her, then all became black. He awoke a few moments later, only to see himself lying face up in a sewer. That's weird. I wonder where I am. Is this sewage? Looking down the hallway, Naruto saw a red glow at the end. Walking towards the glow, Naruto soon found himself in front of an enormous cage. Within it were two gigantic red eyes, watching him. Where am I? You are in my realm, mortal, more specifically your mind. Okay, who are you? You will address me as the Great Lord Kyubi. Kyubi? The demon fox? Wait, the Yondaime killed it or sealed it. That scroll, am I the child he sealed the Kyubi in? Is that why I'm so different? Seeing the young boy piece things together in his head, which was ironic because that's where they were and because the Kyubi could sense Naruto's thoughts, the fox decided to solve this quickly. Yes, you are my vessel, and this is your mindscape, where I reside. You entered here when your mate was struck. Mate? Does he mean Hinata? Ah yes, the blue-haired girl. She is indeed a fine specimen. Blushing crimson, the boy then continued his casual conversation with the Lord of all Demons. Then, as if realizing what was going on, Naruto turned to him and yelled, Wait a minute, I was brought here because Hinata is in trouble. Yes, and I suppose you are out of chakra? Nearly, but I have to protect her. The great Kyubi threw red chakra through the bars in the form of chakra, stabbing Naruto in the stomach with it, imbuing him with it. You may use mine, but keep in mind I am not being generous. You have gained some of my respect, mortal, by working as you do, but once I am free of this cage I will make sure to kill you and all you care for. Naruto was jolted out of his mindscape, and felt power. Turning to Zabuza, he felt his new power, and proclaimed in a voice that sounded much like the fox's within him. You shall never, ever touch Hinata-chan again. Prepare to die. End flashback. Sighing to himself, the Hokage spoke. I suppose there is no longer a reason to hide it. You are the Kyubi's container, a Jinchuriki. I assume from that scroll you saw a few years back, and all those sealing scrolls, you've probably figured the rest out. You are the Yondaime's son, and he sealed the Kyubi into you at birth, at the cost of his life. I'm sorry, but there was no other way to get rid of it. Naruto, though slightly angry that this had been kept from him, thought over the matter a bit more. Ajisen, it's okay. I can only imagine what life would have been like if the people knew I was a container. They may have assumed me to be the demon anyway, like a few choice clan had seemed to think. And seeing as you took me in as your own, I should really be thanking you. Anywhere else, I would have been shunned. Plus, I've suspected it for a while now. As someone studying seals, it's kinda hard not to notice the one that appears on my chest every time I mold chakra. Naruto finished in a happy tone of voice, no anger present at all. The Hokage let a lone tear slide down his face, but then quickly wiped it away. Naruto, thank you. I should warn you though, don't ever use that chakra if you can avoid it. Every time you do, you will weaken the seal just a little more. Since we don't know what would happen if you died, you should only use it as a very last resort. The seal weakening is preferable over the possibility of another coming of the Kyubi. Naruto became thoughtful for a moment, then realized something else. If my father was the Yondaime, who was my mother? And where's our house? I mean, if my dad was Hokage, he must have had a house, and a training ground, and a library and techniques. A bit of drool slipped out of the edge of his mouth, as he thought of the possibilities. Then, noticing the drool, he quickly wiped it off, looking embarrassed. I'll tell you when you become a Jounin, per his request. You may know who he was, but he believed you should work to earn your heritage. After all, what kind of shinobi just copies the style of those before them? Each member of a family contributes to the jutsus, each striving to surpass those before them. Finishing with a grin, he looked at the boy who was now looking at the ground uneasily. The Sandaime then realized he'd missed something in his talk with the boy. Naruto, did you say disintegration seal? I believe I labeled that seal as forbidden. And do you remember why it was forbidden? Naruto looked meekly up at the still intimidating old man. Because it's dangerous? The old man shook his head, then glared at the boy, causing him to shrink under his steely gaze. Naruto, the last time you did that you were in the hospital for the most dire case of chakra exhaustion I've ever seen. If it wasn't for the Kyubi, who I suspect is responsible for your massive chakra supply and fast healing, then you would have died. Aliera's face was still in shock, as the two talked to each other, seemingly oblivious of her presence in the room. Shaking her head side to side, she cleared her throat and attempted to get their attention. I believe there is a very confused sick person in the room. Oh right, me. Stop ignoring me or you'll get my foot up your ass. Naruto and Sandaime both looked sheepish, rubbing the back of their heads. Then Sandaime gained a serious look. Aliera, I entrust you with the information you just heard, and you are not to tell anyone about it. It is an S-class secret, and for betraying the secret, the punishment is execution. I assume you will not break this rule? The kunoichi shrunk back from the killing intent the man had been releasing, and nodded her head. Then, turning to Naruto, Aliera spoke. Naruto, what was wrong with your eyes on the way back? Naruto cursed inwardly. I wanted to keep this a secret, damn it. Nothing was wrong with them, Nei-chan. What are you talking about? However, Naruto's attempt to hide what was going through his head. Naruto, you have 5 seconds before I make you go on D ranks for the next month. The Sandaime said sternly, cowering back from the idea of pulling weeds and walking dogs like he'd seen so many teams do. Naruto began very, very quickly. Ajisen, did my mother or father have bloodline limits? Seeing the Sandaime shake his head no, Naruto began trying to explain his odd ability. Okay, well I think I have a Ninjutsu. I figured out that I can activate it by sending chakra to my eyes. So far as I can tell, it lets me project seals onto objects. I think that's how the gravity seal got onto Zabuza, since I had no ink. Naruto, perhaps it would be better if you just let me see it. Concentrating for a moment, Naruto sent chakra to his eyes, and after a few seconds, he opened them to reveal green eyes, with wide black slits through them and the kanji 4 seal in red in the middle. Interesting and surprising. I have never seen nor heard of a Ninjutsu like that. It will have to be documented, of course. But what did you mean by projecting? A seal appeared on Naruto's hand as he stared at it. A modified exploding seal. See? The seal just appears when I imagine it on my hand. And I can change it. It's like my mind is just projecting the image onto whatever I want it to. However, when Naruto turned to the Hokage, he noticed something was amiss. The Hokage was both staring at him in the eyes, yet not looking at him at all. Ajisen? What's wrong? Naruto, your eyes changed with the seals. Right now, the normal red 4 seal is showing the writing for an exploding note. It's amazing. You're practically burning images into objects with your mind alone. Naruto simply looked confused, until going over to a mirror and watching his eyes change from seal to seal as he cycled through all the ones he knew. After cycling through more than 50 different seals, Naruto noticed that every time he switched the seals, there would be a small dip in his chakra, as if the change was draining him. Also, it seemed that he could only project it onto things that were nearby. The more chakra he forced out of his eyes, the longer the range. After another hour of experimenting with it in the room, they discovered exactly what the range was normally, what seals could be projected, and Naruto, after playing with some modified exploding seals, found a way to sustain a seal with his chakra, so that Naruto could make his opponents explode one after another, like a touch-activated Katan Jutsu. However, Naruto was soon drained. Even with his massive reserves, sustaining a seal for a long amount of time that basically needs to be replaced over and over is not easy. The Hokage performed a quick jutsu which repaired most of the damage to the walls by moving bits around and thinning the material to become evenly spread. Naruto, with that ability trained and your knowledge of seals, you would be equal to most jounin in the village. Maybe in a few years you'd be even with me. I'll send you to the next jounin exams, 2 months after the Chunin exams, but in the meantime you will serve as teammate sensei. With that ability I have no doubt you can lead them on missions. Also, don't tell anyone what we spoke of here today unless you want to, but make sure they don't tell anyone else. The Hokage then turned to Aliera and began speaking again. Do you intend to send them to the Chunin exams? Yes, Hokage-sama. Then Naruto will have to serve as their sensei, as the exams will be starting in 2 weeks and you will be in no shape to serve as their sensei then. Naruto? Yes? Give teammate these. Handing Naruto some forms that he had brought with him, but had been left forgotten on the table until now, Naruto saw that they were entrance exams. Team 7, 9, and 10 will also be participating. Train your students for the next few weeks. They may be an apt team, but help wouldn't do them any harm. Naruto nodded. Falling back into his teaching role, Naruto stood straight up, then bowed to the Hokage and Aliera, and left the room, removing the silencing barrier. Think my little brother there will make a good Hokage? The Hokage, for once, looked incredulous. Are you kidding me? With his reserves, once he hits Jounin, imagine what will happen. If he combines that bloodline with Hiraishin, then that dream of surpassing the Yondaime won't be so far-fetched after all. Hey, if he's the Yondaime legacy, shouldn't you tell the clans? I mean, I'm not blind. I've noticed more than a few clans that don't like him because of QB. If you inform them of whose son he is, it would help, right? Aliera, for once I agree with you. Now get some rest. I can't have my best Jounin out of commission for too long. Wait, Hokage-sama. Chapter 18 Ika Paradise, Volume 4. That's me at age 17. The Hokage promptly fainted from a nosebleed. He would be found in her room later that night, still unconscious with a blush on his cheeks. The next day the nurse that found him had won 10,000 raya. Elsewhere, Hinata sat before her father, wondering what could have possibly caused him to actually pay attention to her. I mean, she knew she wasn't very strong with her Byakugan, and that her Juken was different, as though she had bastardized some of the techniques, but she was a pretty good fighter. She had just done a C rank successfully, even if she hadn't done much, but she couldn't complain, it was decent pay. The icy silence continued, tension thick in the air. Then Hayashi spoke. Hinata. You are weak. You are a disgrace to the main branch of this family. However, you have a chance to redeem this. If you are promoted to Chunin at this exam, you will surpass the prodigy of the branch family. You cousin Niji? You must beat him, or you will no longer be my daughter. Hinata was shocked. Her father had never threatened her with being disowned before. Niji was a prodigy. How could she hope to beat him? If she was disowned, she would be given the caged bird seal, she would be another slave, and Naruto she would lose the freedom to do as she wished and lose the freedom to see Naruto outside of missions. Hayashi motioned for her to leave the room, which she did. She entered her room and burst into tears. A while later, she heard a knock on her door, and opened it to see an older branch member looking down at her with sympathy, having seen that something was wrong. However, the branch member also had a job to do. She told Hinata to go to the door, and she complied. Standing before her was her savior, Naruto. She threw herself into his arms, and finding comfort leaning into his warmth. He guided her back to her room, where he saw a pillow soaked with tears, and simply sit her down to talk. Hinata-chan, what's wrong? I am going to be disowned. Naruto blinked several times in surprise, then looked into her eyes. He lifted her chin, wiped away her tears with a tissue, and kissed her. This left her in shock briefly, before she forgot what she was talking about, and simply enjoyed it. She surprised him when she broke away, got up, and locked the door. Then, sitting down, she pushed Naruto on top of the lying down face up. Moving towards him, she climbed on top of him, and locked lips with his. Naruto was incredibly surprised. He had planned for the girl to merely calm down, not throw him onto the bed. Sensing that things were getting out of hand, he tried to pull himself away, but couldn't. It felt too good, her legs pressed against his, her resting gently on top of him, and her eyes, which now were just looking at him, with a hint of confusion but mostly just a twinkling beacon. The mischievous grin she wore made her seem like a naughty angel from. Hinata, staring into those cerulean blue eyes, began caressing his whisker marks. He began making purring noises, as though he was a very, very happy cat, and soon she felt a hard lump pressing into her thigh. Looking down, still caressing him, while he closed his eyes, she saw his third leg emerge in a tent against her. Seeing this going somewhere, she reached down and pulled off his jacket. He had changed since being at the hospital, having worn a black windbreaker with only his chunin vest underneath. He'd planned to get some training done with the team, and thus required no shirt. He was also wearing black ninja pants that were a little loose, but had a white length of rope tied around them to serve as a belt. Having removed the offending jacket, Hinata removed his vest, and rested against his chest, her hair tickling it as she got herself comfortable. Hinata, can you tell me what happened? The tears threatened to break through again, but she feared not being able to talk coherently, so she pushed them back. She explained to him what had happened, and saw not what she expected. Instead of looking defeated, he put on a determined look. Hinata-chan, if that's the case, then that just means you'll have to train harder. I promise by the time I'm done with you, you'll be able to beat him. But don't you have missions? Actually no, that's what I came here to talk to you about. For the moment, though I'm not actually a jounin, though the Hokage seems to think I'd make a good one, I am to serve as Team 8's temporary jounin sensei. Now, Hinata knew Naruto was strong. He had beaten Zabuza after all, but that was still a blow to the head. Naruto? Jounin level? That hardly made sense, but then again he was Sarutobi's newest protege. Naruto, that's great. But won't you have to train Kiba and Shino too? Of course, but you can learn my taijutsu style. Combined with the Jukin, I'm sure you'll be able to kick Niji's butt. His determination was infectious, as was his smile. Hinata was soon grinning wide at the thought that she would get some alone time with Naruto now that he was her sensei. Giving him another kiss, she halted when she heard footsteps. Knocking sounded on the locked door. Hinata looked over at Naruto, who had already put his vest and jacket back on, and nodded. Come in. Hayashi stepped through the doorway, briefly narrowing his eyes at Naruto, then let it slide. He had indeed become a weapon of the village, just a weapon that chose to date his daughter, or the girl who wouldn't be his daughter anymore if she failed. Naruto, it is time for Hinata's practice. You may now leave. Naruto got the idea, and quickly left, discreetly leaving a note and form on Hinata's table. He set off for the Inuzuka house, to visit a good friend. Inuzuka household. Naruto looked around, once again noticing how different this clan household was from the Hyuga compound. Naruto simply walked up and knocked on the door, a second later being opened by a happy Kiba with his white dog, Akamaru, sitting atop his head. Hey Naruto! What's up? That's Naruto-sensei to you. Hey, good one. You may be higher up there in rank, but you sure aren't my sensei. Handing the Inuzuka one of 2 remaining notes, the boy read over it carefully. To member of Team 8, Naruto is now your temporary sensei for the Chunin exams, as Aliera is unable to train you at this time due to damages to her chakra system. He is more than capable of training you, so listen to him well. If you make it to the 3rd portion of the exams, Aliera will train you in the month in between the end of the 2nd and the start of the 3rd. Please respect him, as he will you. Come to me if you have any problems. Sandaime, Sarutobi. At the bottom was the seal of the Hokage, showing it was officially the Hokage's message. Kiba was slack-jawed at the note. He turned to look at Naruto again, noticing the kiss marks on him, and decided even if he was his sensei now, he was still Naruto. Well, this seems legit. I must ask though, Naruto, did you happen to visit Hinata first? She appears to have eaten you. Naruto blushed crimson, then wiped off the parts that Hinata had kissed, some that didn't have marks, which made Kiba chuckle in amusement. Shut up, you're just jealous that you can't get any girl our age to look at you, mutt. Kiba growled dangerously at that, but before he could respond, Naruto held up a hand, signaling for him to stop. Kiba, meet me at the normal training ground tomorrow, normal time. Also here, take this. Get me a response to this by tomorrow, and fill it out. Handing Kiba the Chunin exam form, Naruto shined away. However, on the wind he could have sworn he heard Kiba cheering. Aburaim compound, hello Shino. The boy turned to Naruto, noticing nothing out of the ordinary. Hello Naruto. Here Naruto said, handing the note to Shino. The bug boy read over it very quickly, then nodded. Correction, Naruto-sensei. Unlike Kiba, Shino had read the mission report and had seen that Naruto had defeated Momochi Zabuza himself, a feat that Aliera had trouble with the first time around. Admittedly, from what Shino saw, that was because she wanted him alive for questioning, but then had to give up that option when her sword got away from her. Even then, she held back some. An attack of the caliber she'd used could have killed Zabuza had she so chosen. Yes. Here, fill this out by tomorrow if you want to participate, and I'll see you at the training field normal time tomorrow. Indeed. Naruto then handed Shino the form and shined away. The boy was as quiet as ever, and for once Naruto was happy with that. It meant that he could get home to a shower faster. Naruto sped off for home. 5 minutes later, Naruto was taking a shortcut through some training grounds when he heard the sound of steel clashing against posts very loudly and very rapidly, one after another. Stopping his movements, he looked down at a nearby field, and saw a girl with brown hair, bound up into buns, throwing many kunai at training posts, summoning them from storage scrolls. She was wearing a pink Chinese shirt which was rather tight, showing off her assets, a little bigger than normal for someone her age, her looking to be about 13 or 14. She was also wearing green baggy ninja pants, similar to his own black ones, except with a kunai pouch strapped to the right thigh. Looking at the damage to the posts, they appeared to be straining, the amount of kunai hitting them nearly cracking them at the bullseye mark. Deciding to have some fun experimenting, Naruto activated his bloodline and, focusing very hard on one of her kunai, put an exploding note seal on it just before it struck. Seconds later, the post exploded, sending a spray of kunai facing the wrong way straight back towards the young kunoichi. She caught every one of them, all 28 that were in the post, putting them down as she caught them in an impressive show of speed and skill. She then threw one straight at him. Naruto caught it and dropped down from the tree, tossing the kunai to himself while whistling. She simply looked at him, then noticed 3 things. He was younger than her, he had a Konoha headband, and he had a Chunin vest. Excuse me? She called to him rudely, walking towards him threateningly, other kunai in hand. Why did you just attack me? Naruto looked her way, a faint blush on his cheeks. She was indeed cute, even cuter closer up. I love Hinata, he chanted in his head. I didn't attack you, I was just testing something out. What, pray tell, may that be? Sorry, can't tell you. He smirked, feeling smug, then looked around the clearing. There were various weapons strewn about the clearing. Clearly she was fixated on Kenjutsu. You wouldn't happen to be Rock Lee's other teammate, would you? She was surprised, especially since she had never heard anything from Lee about the boy standing before her. She was further surprised when he took off his jacket to reveal he was wearing no shirt underneath, just the vest which now hung open, showing his muscles, as he took a fighter's stance. Yes, I am his teammate Tenten. Why exactly are you in a fighter's stance? Every time I meet up with Lee he always challenges me to a fight. I thought it was normal for his teammates, considering as Niji nearly did the same thing first time I met him. Though if you don't think you're up for it, I understand. The statement hung for a moment before Tenten too got into her taijutsu stance and drew a kunai. Oh, so we're using weapons? Well, I have none on me, but I can make do. Katon, flame staff no jutsu, flying through the hand seals required. Naruto created the 6-foot-long staff and held it out in front of him at a 45-degree angle to the ground, crouching slightly and having one end of the staff low and about 3 feet in front of himself. Tenten just looked on in awe. He was wielding fire as a weapon. As a staff, without burning himself. She had never even heard of that before, having a weapon on call like that. There were no jutsus like that, not even the Sandaime had that. Well, we gonna get started or what? Shaking herself from her state of awe, Tenten leapt into the air, throwing 10 kunai at him, spiraling in midair, from just her 2 hands. However, Naruto, seeing the kunai heading for him, decided to try one of his newer techniques. Futon, Flame Staff Shield. Spinning the flame staff quickly with the use of wind chakra, Naruto both increased the intensity of the flame and created a shield. The kunai melted upon impact. Letting the technique drop, Naruto charged at Tenten. Announcing his new attack, he formed the 7 hand seals and shouted Katon Futon, Flame, Orb Charge. Bending the staff and increasing its size so that it formed a ring around himself, he sent it spinning with the use of wind chakra, and jumped at her, the ball of fire colliding just after she landed. Standing in a crater 10 feet in diameter, Naruto dispelled his staff, seeing it as unnecessary. Seeing him distracted, if just for a moment, Tenten flicked some kunai at him. However, Naruto merely flipped to the side, then charged again, planting his hands on the ground and spinning above her. She moved around so that she was facing his back and planted a kick in his side, only to have him disappear in a poof of smoke. She sensed danger, but it was too late. She felt a strike on her body, just above her butt. The effect was immediate. Her legs would no longer move, and she just fell forward, kneeling on her now dysfunctional legs. Naruto simply walked around to the front of her, and crouched just out of arm's reach directly in front of her. I was expecting more of a challenge from Lee's teammate. He usually gives me a good workout when I take my weights off. You wear weights? Well, that explains why you're so fast. Next time we fight, why don't we fight like I do with Lee? Weights on. My weights were on. Her jaw dropped. He's that fast with weights on? Admittedly, that's not half as good as Lee, but still pretty fast. If I was at my best, I'd have done a lot better. Well, you got lucky? I'm tired. Next time you won't be so lucky. Anyway, you're a crazy taijutsu user too? He merely chuckled at the comment. Upon greater inspection, it would have been revealed he was holding back full-blow laughter. Heh, no. Taijutsu's my weak point. I'm a ninjutsu user, but my specialty is really Fujinjutsu. My genjutsu and kenjutsu aren't half bad either. Yeah, I can tell. Wait, Fujinjutsu? You study seals? Yeah. They're really interesting. Do you think you could show me some better storage scrolls? These things don't hold many each. I wanted to know if there was a better way. The chit-chat continued for a while, either noticing the minor injuries on themselves, though Naruto's were already gone, and his had been caused by himself, due to a minor lapse in control during the flame orb charge. Finally, Naruto asked what he had been thinking for a while. So how do you get all these weapons anyhow? My family owns a weapons store near the center of town. I'm surprised you don't know of it, though I doubt you often have to restock weapons when you have those staffs of yours. Yeah, I rarely restock. I have a question for you. Would you buy a weapon if it was in good condition? Tenten looked at him with curiosity. I suppose. Why? Well, I have something I want to sell. I sure as heck don't need it. Naruto pulled a scroll out of his vest, once again bringing Tenten's attention to his chest, causing her to blush. A skilled kenjutsu user with summoned weapons and a great body and beautiful eyes and a holy fucking shit. Naruto had pulled out the scroll that had Zabuza's second sword, a famous sword known as Serioli for the man that had crafted it, as shown by the engraving on the blade. It was beautiful, 6 feet long, 5 feet of blade, 1 foot of handle. It had a serrated edge on one side, the teeth pointing down, and was sharpened for slicing on the other end. The point looked perfect for stabbing. The hilt, a shiny silver, looked fairly normal, and the hilt was blood red, also plain looking. However, the engraving on the blade, Serioli, was quite obvious. So how much could I sell this to you for? I couldn't buy it off you now. Can you follow me to the shop? It's only a little after 5 and he shouldn't have closed up just yet. Sure, here, I'll help you pick up this stuff.